Chapter 1. Piper studied biomedical sciences at Stanford University. Her home would always be Rochester, New York. Her time on campus was lively and vibrant with people of all backgrounds. At home, she still had a few friends, spending all her time in her family's mansion, bored. To Piper, today was an average day. She woke up around 1 or 2 in the afternoon, dragging her feet around the banner until she spotted her dad in the front yard, talking to a black man. Piper's curiosity flew through the roof, eyeballing the handsome young man, patiently listening to her father with a pickup truck filled with yard supplies. Her father complained that sometimes he needed a full-time or on-call groundskeeper because the grass grew back fast and the weeds even quicker. Piper bit her lip, needing a closer look as she floated toward the 2 men in front of the home. Soon she was looking out the outstretched ocean of emerald green grass. "Good morning, Daddy," Piper greets, hugging her father's arm with her eyes transfixed on the swarthy man across from her. "Hey, Pumpkin Puddin', this is Jabari. Stay out of his way while he works," her father warns, knowing how she likes spending her days smoking devil's grass by the pool or wherever she could get distance from her parents. Jabari. Piper couldn't hide her excitement as she darted out her hands. Her father scowled, and Jabari crossed his hands behind his back, giving a curt, polite nod. "You don't talk?" Piper raised an eyebrow, seeing the 2 men involved in a conversation. "Am I interrupting?" "Yes, now get your ass back in the house," her father lightly pushed her along, taking Jabari to inspect the grass and get a quote. Piper poked out her lip, pouting back to her room where she got dressed for the day. She sat across her bed, reading a shonen manga until she heard the conversation outside her window. While ignoring it, her curiosity found her by the window, watching the 2 quietly. "The last guy I had was full of shit. The bastard would charge monthly and show up once a month, cut the grass, then leave." "A lot of grass to cut," Jabari whistled. The backyard was longer than the front yard and longer by a few inches. 15,000 a year for 1 cut a month. He shook his head, wiping the sweat from his brow. Jabari whistled, never imagining such a high paycheck from an hour-long drive up north. Without hesitation, Jabari began walking the perimeter, sucking his teeth at the growing weeds overtaking their garden. The last guy either refused to weed whack or was too significant a burden on the acres of land. Jabari mostly worked around his neighborhood, restoring the Buffalo area. Word began spreading of a reliable guy who knew what he was doing. He was heading all sorts of locations for a year until getting his LLC and truck. He had invested in his equipment the entire time, but the riding mower was the piece de resistance. What once took him hours took half an hour with attention to detail with the same price tag. He went from working hourly to working promotion and being single. He had plenty of time to build. He never expected to be standing next to the Imperial Wizard discussing work. Jabari was also a licensed tax lawyer and CPA. It seemed fitting he would hire a black man to cut his grass rather than do his taxes. He mowed a few lawns for his neighbor, their friends, and their family until it replaced his original career in tax law. "All right, now, I'm a fair man. Show up here twice a month. Fix this place up for my guests on special occasions. I'll send you a check or pay you cash after so the banks don't give you problems, all right?" Her father continued. "Might run you about 25 grand a year and about 1,000 per diem. Get this place in shape. Your backyard's a forest and your front yard is crossing the Great Plains, man." Jabari elucidated on his price. The Imperial Wizard nodded, looking over his property. "See, this is what I talk about with my friends. Hire a white man. He gives you a fair price and doesn't want to work. But you black men charge an arm and a leg. But you do good work." "That's what y'all talk about in those woods at night?" Jabari adjusted. The Imperial Wizard smirked, giving the young man a wink and wrapping an arm around him. "You know, boy, I'm hiring you to get a better price than that dago bastard who took advantage of me." He sought sympathy. "I thought you came to get better work than the gentleman before me. It's a huge property. It's tradable quoting you at 20,000 for 2 monthly visits. Given all the work here, it'll be weekly. So I'll give you 4 monthly cuts. If I wait too long, week to week, this might overgrow beyond maintaining, and then I end up in the woods with you and your boys." The Imperial Wizard couldn't help but laugh, gripping Jabari and releasing him. You're telling me you'll come over here once a week for $20,000 a year? I believe I said 25,000. Jabari noted politely. Man, I couldn't even get the last bastard here once a month. I paid every bill. I'll take you up for 30,000 if you stay your black ass out my house. The Imperial Wizard extended his hand. Jabari nodded, shaking his hand, looking up to see Piper eyeballing him from the window. Got a few months from my daughter being home from school, and I don't need mixed breed babies running around because you got a hankering for vanilla. She's in California learning from those hippies and gays. She used to be a sweet girl. Came to our meetings and went to camps. She could have led the Fourth Reich, but instead, she wants to smoke weed and eat my food all day. The Imperial Wizard fumed. The window shutting caught both men's attention, and they were surprised it didn't break. Her father gritted his teeth, ready to explode, but instead excused himself, letting Jabari get to work while he attended to his daughter. Chapter 2. Jabari headed back to the front of the property, knowing it took minutes, not seconds, to traverse the property, realizing he couldn't afford to make too many trips back and forth. He moved his truck further on the property, riding around to find a good place to start, realizing even 30,000 might have been undercutting, working for the actual enemy. Regardless, Jabari got on his mower, started her up, and headed off to cut the backyard, starting in the back, then working his way front to leave if anyone caught issues with him. He could finish and then head off rather than being stuck with an entire plantation's worth of grass to cut. He tried remembering who referred him to the job, shooing the thoughts, not letting them ruin his payday. Until now, he was arguing with people to pay $50 for a mow, weed whacking, cleanup, and hedging. Thousands of dollars in one day to work for a prick. Jabari didn't care. As long as his new client kept his bullshit to himself, he might even share a bear before he leaves. Jabari began finishing up mowing the backyard, wanting to trim the weeds down, while he had all his energy. He hadn't realized the time was passing by until his weed whacker's battery died, forcing him to recharge and switch methods. Soon he was working in the garden bed, smelling the familiar odor of cannabis. Jabari chuckled at the thought of the Grand Wizard growing weed, but the smell was further away, wafting through the air as he found himself by the pool. Hello again. Piper took a deep inhale before blowing her smoke in his face. What's up, man? Jabari greeted and extended his hand up for the joint. Piper smirked, handing it over as she looked into the backyard. How do you get those stripes to show so well? I go over the area twice in 2 different directions. Watched a lot of videos and cut a lot of grass. Jabari took 2 hits and then extended it back to her. Piper refused. Please, chief up. You've earned it. Thank you, ma'am. I'm not a ma'am, Piper laughed behind her hands. Just trying to be polite, miss. Piper laughed. My name is Piper Meyers. And you? Jabari Bennet. Jabari extended his hand. I'm a hugger. Piper took no time wrapping her arms around his neck, pressing her chest to his stomach. Oh, wow. You work out? You ever read the book To Kill a Mockingbird? It reminded me a bit of this right here. Jabari notes. Piper laughed. Oh my God, you're hilarious. Or maybe it's just the weed. There's some good shit. You want to buy some weed? Piper offers. What? Little white girl selling weed? I'll take a dime off you. Jabari shrugs. I'm the plug's daughter. I only deal weight, but I can hook you up with a half for free because you're cute. Piper flexes, going to her Hello Kitty backpack, giving Jabari a peek at the pound of weed she smoked all day into repeating the cycle the next day. Holy shit, I ain't seen that much weed before in my life. Jabari had to lower his voice, feeling himself begin sweating from the heat or being around this woman. Look, I gotta get back to work. I just got here today and I don't need your dad to catch me out here smoking weed with you. Fair enough. If you want to buy some, let me know. Or we can sneak off in your truck somewhere to be alone. Piper suggested. To smoke? Yeah, smoking. Piper rolled her eyes, realizing Jabari was oblivious. Thank you for the refreshment. I'll finish up the front yard, then head off to my next house. Jabari bows his head, starting for his mower. Piper followed him. You have more after us? Your boss up your ass? Yeah, he's a taskmaster for sure. Always got me working and dealing with the craziest clients. Jabari joked. Quit and hang out with me, Piper suggests. I can't quit my own business, Miss Piper. Jabari started his mower and then headed off. Piper grinned. Wait, how about when you're done? If you are your boss, you have time to smoke with me. I'll be ready for a good session. Jabari considered the idea of getting smoked up by the daughter of the Imperial Wizard, and it would be hard giving up such a story to tell. It depends on a lot of factors. Jabari brushed her off, heading off to focus on his work. Piper bit her thumb, going to his truck off to the back of the house, lighting up her blunt as she waited for him to return, eventually getting bored when she heard the mower still going 10 minutes later, realizing he was barely halfway done and would likely be another 15 to 20 minutes. Piper headed inside, finding the live-in maid, requesting she makes her lunch for two, then went upstairs to change. When Piper returned outside, she found Jabari weeding the garden beds on the side of the house. Piper searched for Jabari, holding a tray of finger foods and a pitcher of iced tea. Piper set herself up with a great view of the shirtless gardener, squatted down in the gardens. The front yard and backyard were immaculate. He was now doing extra, and his truck was out of sight. Her father would question nothing, and now he had no excuses to avoid her. Out of view, and his job was already done. Hey, ready for a break? Piper called out, sipping a cup of iced tea. Jabari turned his head over his shoulder, spotting Piper in a lawn chair with tiny sandwiches with the crust cut off, with different meats and cheeses. Jabari was blown away by her hospitality, even shocked when Piper pulled out 2 joints, extending one to him. Thank you, Miss Piper. So, are you done for the day? I'm trying to leave a good impression. Figure I might as well pluck some weeds while I wait for my string trimmer to charge. String trimmer? Piper covered her mouth, blushing and having no idea about tools. A weed whacker? Jabari shook his head, taking a lighter from his pocket to spark up his spliff. Oh, the thing that sends the rocks and dirt everywhere. Piper clapped her hands, understanding immediately. Basically. Yeah, you use it for the grass along the edge of the house. It looks like it hasn't been touched in months. My dad tried doing it himself, but didn't know how much work it would be. And then he asked one of his lodge brothers to do it. The guy robbed him, showed up, cut the grass, and dipped. Dad called him every name in the book. He tried doing it himself again, and now you're here. When people think you're rich, they take advantage of you, Piper recalled. Such a shame being rich and white in America. How do you cope? Jabari chuckled. You think I'm being an entitled little bitch? Piper leaned forward before holding the joint to her lips. I can't imagine you got hotter than someone poor that got to deal with your dad's boys. You ain't got to fixate on life, dignity, or death, dealing with your people. You got to worry about broke motherfuckers asking you for money. Everybody got to deal with that. Piper bit her lips as Jabari lit her joint, taking a swallow to inhale before blowing the smoke in his face, giving Jabari a wink. She remained quiet, enjoying his drawl as he spoke. Now, why you keep blowing smoke in my face? Jabari gritted his teeth, ready to tell her off. In France, it means you want to have sex with someone, Piper explained matter-of-factly. Oh, I've never been to France. Wait, me? Jabari pointed to himself, beginning to laugh, wishing he could loosen his collar, but he wasn't wearing a shirt. Piper nodded, repeating the gesture before lowering herself to her knees before Jabari. Jabari reached to stop her, worried about her father, but Piper swatted his hand away, yanking twice in his basketball shorts before opening her mouth, attempting to fit her jaws around his girthy cock. Jabari hit his joint in disbelief, watching the redhead fumbling around with his dick. I knew you had a big dick. 'Cause I'm black, Jabari accused. Because I could see the imprint in your pants when you were talking to my dad. Piper giggled. You ever heard of Emmett Till? Jabari asked, looking over his shoulder for her father. Have you heard of Michael Jordan or Seal? Piper rebuttals before finally fitting him down her throat. Piper closed her eyes, choking and gagging as tears fill her eyes before submitting to take a breath. Jabari bit his lips, watching her move in again, and ran his hands through her hair as Piper found a steady pace, slurping and sucking all over his cock until her jaw began to hurt. You done? Jabari asked, beginning to pull up his pants. You didn't even come. You didn't like it? Piper says, offended. What? It's not even like that, baby girl. I'm not trying to get killed over you. It's worth it. What? I mean, if you wanted to find out. I have no issue showing you what I mean. Piper grins mischievously, leading him around the house to a location with no windows. Chapter 3. Jabari leans over to kiss Piper, lifting her to her tiptoes as he caresses her butt and lifting her sundress to discover she hadn't worn panties. Piper can no longer control herself, holding up her dress with one hand, leaning against the wall of the house, spreading her butt cheek with the other. Jabari licked his fingers, tickling her clitoris and labia before slapping his mushroom tip against her hungry pussy. Piper gobbled him up, now covering her mouth from her muffled moans, adjusting to Jabari, pleasuring her pain, readjusting her guts. Jabari held her hips, mercilessly slamming into her hips, breaking in Piper's back as she gasped. Oh my God. Oh my God. As her vagina stretched for his penis. Please don't stop fucking my tight little pussy. Oh shit. Jabari pulled out of her, coming on her back as she started talking dirty. Fuck me, nigga. Piper gasped. Jabari rose an eyebrow, looking down at Piper, smacking her butt before gripping her hips and began punishing Piper's guts. Oh, wow. I can feel it running down my back. That's so much. Piper giggles, feeling accomplished. Been a minute since I got some ass. I'll be honest. All work and no play? Piper begins winding her hips, sliding him back inside without worry as he quickly enters her again. You feel so good. This is exactly what your dad told me not to do. Jabari groaned. You're my daddy with that big old dick in me. Piper confirmed as she felt more confident, pressing her hips against his and feeling him squeeze his seat out. I don't ever want you to let me go. I love how you hold me. Girl, I done came in you twice now. You in birth control? I'll take my pill at 7 p.m. Relax. Piper moaned, leaning back to kiss him. Come in me more. It feels so good. Damn, girl. Jabari surrendered, holding her hips as she wrestled her to the ground. Piper raised her butt high in the air on all fours as Jabari made her cheeks clap against his waist. The applause overtook the quiet sounds of nature in the backyard. Piper couldn't mute her moans, muttering in tongues and lifting groans of pleasure as she was dominated. I came, Piper admitted, laying out flat in her stomach, panting on the ground, wrapped up in her sundress. Come on, clean my dick up, white girl. Jabari demanded, and Piper consented, crawling over on all fours before cupping his balls. Too bad I won't see you again for a while. What? I thought you'd be here every day. Piper frowned, massaging his balls and stroking his shaft. Nah, bi-weekly. Maybe weekly until I get the bulk of this work straightened out. Once you front-load a few days with some elbow grease, the rest is easy, Jabari explained. But, dude, I can't wait a week to fuck you again. Piper made him disappear down her throat, hoping he would agree. Come to Buffalo and stay for a couple days. I don't drive. How would I get to Buffalo? How do you get around? I have a driver. He would tell my parents he'd drop me off in the hood. I don't live in the hood. First you call me a nigga, now you're assuming shit. Watch yourself, Jabari growled. Sorry, drop me off in a black neighborhood, Piper corrected. Damn, that sounded even worse than the hood. Jabari smacked his head, wondering what he was expecting. You could come here, and I'm yours whenever you want. Can't you stop by tomorrow? Tell me you forgot something, and we can go again. Girl, this is an hour-long drive. I'm not driving 2 hours for some pussy. Dude, you rearrange my insides and make me choke on your pecker. It would help if you saw things from my perspective. Can you pick me up at the Museum of Science in Buffalo? Then we can go from your place from there. I'll meet up with one of my girlfriends. Jabari rubbed his cheek. Like, a date? Well, I mean, I would hate for her to be a third wheel. You'd have to make my girlfriend feel welcome too. You may have to take us both out, so yeah. Then we can go out to lunch, you and I can repeat, then you and she can three-peat. Piper worked it all out in her head. You sure? Jabari asked. Piper slacked his dick against her forehead and tongue, swooning over him. Fuck it, I'm down. Jabari couldn't resist, pinning Piper on her back. Taking her missionary, she wrapped her legs and arms around him. The two kissed passionately, muffling each other's moans as they climaxed in one another's arms. Jabari stood. Piper sat up, drinking his seed as he let out a groan, emptying his balls into the mouth of the Imperial Wizard's daughter. Piper? Piper? The maid and nanny confronted Piper, swallowing Jabari's cum. Oh, shit. Jabari hopped back, looking for his clothes. What are you doing to her? The maid whispered, covering her mouth so as not to be heard. Relax, Sophia. Relax. Piper held her hand, slowly switching places as she placed her maid on her knees before Jabari. The 40-year-old woman closed her eyes, beginning to pray before the giant penis dangling in her face. Just touch it, Piper demanded. Nah, it's all right, Jabari remarked, ready to leave before getting caught. No, she needs to keep her mouth shut. Fuck her throat. Keep her quiet. She can't tell my parents anything if she did it too. Piper barked, pushing the maid's face against his dick. Nah, stop. It's cool. Let's get out before your pops comes, Jabari insisted. Sophia, suck his fucking dick. Sophia, suck his fucking dick, Piper screamed at her elder, pointing to his flaccid penis. It's too big. No, Sophia sobbed, happily married with children when she wasn't working here. Do it or I'll tell my dad and your husband I caught you fucking him, Piper accused. Jabari was horrified at how quickly things turned to blackmail. Yet he couldn't resist the sensation of the older woman frantically sucking his dick. He gripped the back of Sophia's head and the woman relaxed, letting him use her for pleasure. Are you okay? Jabari asked softly. Si, papi, claro que si, Sophia seductively moaned, dutifully pleasuring the groundskeeper. Good, now you two stay here. I'm returning to my room so no one suspects anything. Piper ran off, leaving the two. Though Sophia could have stopped, she found herself enticed to stroke Jabari's dick before praying under her breath, returning to the sinful act unable to resist. Slobber ran down her cheeks until Jabari pulled himself away. She's gone. You need to be too, Jabari forewarns. Por qué? Sophia asked, fanning herself. You mean you enjoyed it? Jabari chuckled. No one will find out, Sophia assured. She emptied me, baby. I don't have another round in me. Not if I'm going to finish the yard. You rather do the lawn than me? Sophia joked, laying on the guilt only a married woman had mastered, her puppy dog brown eyes. Y'all gonna get me killed, Jabari pulled up his shorts. That chick doesn't scare you? That little puta always gets under my skin, but this is not a bad order, Sophia shrugged. Better than cleaning a toilet or dealing with her mother all day. Jabari nodded. Her mom is worse. First day? Sophia asked as Jabari helped her to her feet. Yes, ma'am. I already feel like I need to get out, Jabari sighed. I'm not telling anyone. Sophia kissed his neck, sending chills down his spine, kissing down his back until she was back on her knees, suckling his balls. Man, fuck that. I'm keeping this job. Jabari muttered as Sophia freed her breast from her uniform. Jabari sat back in the lawn chair and watched Sophia massage him with her breasts. Sophia had always been warned to stay away from black people since coming to America from Venezuela, especially black men. With the young man's giant dick spilling out of her breasts, unlike her husband and boss, she could barely feel them between her breasts. Instead, she was forced to suck his dick as Jabari humped her breast, holding her breasts together as his seed dribbled in her mouth. Sophia licked her lips, understanding how Piper fell in love so quickly, fanning herself, prepared to risk it all for the young man. Sophia discreetly laid on her back, looking away and offering herself to Jabari. Lady, I'm gonna pass out if I try fucking you right now. Jabari raised his hands in the air. Oh, I was not suggesting it. I was just thinking about how good of a job you did. Sophia sits up, rubbing the grass underneath her. Believe me, I would otherwise. Jabari chuckles, putting his shorts on and moving away to check his string trimmer. You didn't eat your lunch, Sophia announces. Your pussy, Jabari said, confused. No, that little bitch made me make these sandwiches and cut off the crust. Eat them, or I can wrap them up for you to take home, Sophia said maternally. Are you single? Jabari asked, admiring Sophia's tenderness. I'm married, Sophia gasped, her cheeks turning fire truck red as she hid her face from God. I guess I should keep my dick out of you, huh? I guess so. Sophia sighs, grabbing his plate and leaving him alone to work. I love this place, Jabari murmurs as he watches Sophia walking away. His weed whacker was fully charged. He found himself back at work. Instead of feeling exhausted, he was fully rejuvenated. He was whistling and rapping along to the music from his earbuds beneath his noise-canceling earmuffs. He didn't realize the Imperial Wizard had been over his shoulder. The wizard watched him along with two other men, eyeballing him, studying him in silence as Jabari began explaining. Going to the jeweler, bust the AP, yeah. Sliding on the water like a jet ski, yeah. I'm trying to fuck you when you're bestie, yeah. Chopper with the scope to not test me, yeah. Ric Flair Jer go woo on a bitch. Whoa, whoa, what the fuck? Jabari turns around, pulling on his earmuffs, his earbuds dropping to the ground below, raising his weed whacker between him and the men. Jungle music, huh? One of the men spits out a mouth of dip, tucking his hands in his pocket, his holster none too far from his hip. Hey, this is my new friend, the Imperial Wizard smiled, slapping a fistful of Benjamins into Jabari's hand and shaking his hand firmly. Man, this place never looked so good. You see, boys, this is how a mansion is supposed to look. Good work, good pay, and honest men. The other two men glared at Jabari. That's right, boss. The fairly man consolidates in solidarity with his leader. The first man continued his glare, looking at the money in Jabari's hand with spite. It doesn't look that good, he ridiculed. I'm not finished yet, Jabari grunted. I could tell. The man reinforces, looking Jabari dead in the eyes. Looks like the same shit. You cut it nicely. Look at the rest of this shit. You've been here all this damn time, and all you could do is mow? I had to charge my weed whacker. I've been pulling weeds. Look for yourself, boy, Jabari challenged. Oh, that's the problem. You got electric equipment. No use killing the sand niggas if you don't use a good old American unleaded. Must be some tree-hugging faggot. The first man stepped closer, spitting on the ground. If you needed to kill the Arabs to get it, it wasn't American, Jabari explained. The man cut his eyes at Jabari, looking at the other men, then excused himself, walking off before he did something he regretted. I'm just trying to work, man. Yeah, I know. Sorry, man. Someone told us she heard my daughter screaming. I had to check it out. But Piper says she ain't even see you. She's in her room sleeping. The Imperial Wizard rubbed his neck. You know what happened? I saw her earlier when I was talking with you. You told her to go inside, Jabari deflected. Yeah, I remember that. I don't know. Piper can be dramatic. Stay the fuck away from her, boy. Here, take this right here. Stay away from my daughter. That's her fiancé, Douglas. He was ready to string you up, boy. The Imperial Wizard opened his wallet and dug another stack of hundreds, extending them to Jabari. Sir. No, I insist. Doug is mad because he recommended the last guy. I fired that joker. My daughter wasn't too fond when I told her she would be marrying Douglas either, so the idea of her taking a liking to you, enough to make you want to fight a man. He's in your band of merry men, too. The Imperial Wizard held back the other man, ready to strike Jabari. Douglas is my Grand Dragon. This here is his squire. You guys are the Knights Templar. Jabari raised an eyebrow. The Imperial Wizard smiled, looking at the squire with approval, and the squire left dismayed, retreating to his dragon, leaving the two men alone. Your daughter's getting married. Jabari sounded disappointed. Why do you care? The Imperial Wizard growled. She's beautiful, Jabari notes, unable to forget the thick white girl in his arms. The wizard held the stack of money in one hand, retrieving his revolver with the other, holding both hands out to Jabari, offering him to pick. Jabari backed away. That's my daughter, and she will carry on my legacy, whether she likes it or not. We're getting work done here, boy. I suggest you focus on yours, leave me and mine alone, and I'll keep my boys off of you. Now take this motherfucking money, put on a goddamn shirt before I bring back Douglas. This ain't about the money. Jabari challenged the wizard's threat, choosing neither the money nor the gun, holding his weed whacker as they stood off. Poppy, here's your lunch, Sophia greeted, thinking her accent as if she didn't speak perfect English. Oh, you met Sophia. The Imperial Wizard holstered his gun before the lady reached for the food, as if for him. Sí, Papi es muy rico, Sophia teased with all her attention on Jabari. I love it when you speak that shit. Her boss gleams, feeling cultured by proxy. Thank you, Sophia. Can you put it on my pickup? Jabari asked, not taking his eyes off the three men, sizing him up for how much rope they'll need. Sígame, por favor, Sophia pleads, pulling him along. What? Jabari was shocked at Sophia's request. Your truck. Me no sé, no hablo inglés. Sophia shrugs, despite the truck being in plain sight, playing the fool before her boss. You must not speak Spanish. She said, show me where your car is, boy. Now take this goddamn money and stay away from my daughter. Grass goes back, boy. Limbs don't. See you in a week. The Grand Wizard stuffs the money in Jabari's hand, shaking the hand by force, trying to squeeze the younger man's hand. Jabari cocked his head, looking him dead in the eyes, matching the wizard's strength, holding himself back from breaking the man's hand until Piper came jogging up. Piper changed into a tracksuit with slippers and a pair of glasses. She looked like she had been at the gym or her room the whole time. Daddy? Piper put her hand on the man's hand, gently removing their grip as she stepped between them. Sophia was stunned, silent by Jabari's audacity, watching as Piper attempted to intervene. Piper, sweetheart! Douglas cheered, returning, realizing his wife-to-be was here. Oh, hey, Doug. Piper bit her lip, sheepishly looking at Jabari as her fiancé picked her up. I was so worried about you, baby doll. Your mama said you've been screaming and I had to run over to check on my baby. Douglas kissed all over her face before she could even shower. I don't need you to be worried about me. Please put me down. Piper sighed, feeling mortified at what she had created. All three white men were armed, and their focus shifted back to Jabari with an audience for the torment. As Piper kept stealing glances at the shirtless groundskeeper, still filling Jabari's girth inside her. We were checking out this guy's lousy job, Doug Hayes, pointing at the weeds growing by the house. Well, the house looked worse than this before he got here. At least he's trying to fix it. He didn't even finish with the string trimmer yet. Piper crossed her arms over her chest, defending her new lover instinctively. What do you know about string trimming? Douglas rolled his eyes, laughing with his squire. Jabari had removed himself from the conversation, picking up his earbuds and earmuffs, realizing they wouldn't attack him with the woman around. Jabari turned his music up, rapping even louder as he turned on the weed whacker, returning to work. Before their eyes, he transformed the side of the house, removing months of weeds in mere moments. Douglas's laughter stopped, replaced with rage as he was made to look like a fool as Jabari left entirely around the house, continuing with his job toward the front of the house, moving to get the hell away from these people. Chapter 5. Why are you treating him that way? Piper shoved Douglas. Why are you defending him? Douglas interrogated. You're the one out here screaming. I was playing a scary video game on my laptop, Piper threw up her hands. Poppy's Playtime just released a new chapter and it took me off guard. You haven't been smoking with that guy? Douglas accused her as if he knew more than he put on. Dude, you need to back the fuck off. You're so fucking controlling. Piper groaned, wanting to rip her hair out. I'm trying to protect you. Watch your mouth. It's not ladylike, her father intervened. You're the ones with weapons, Piper points at their waist. Who protects them from you? You a nigger lover now? When did you start taking your coffee black? Her father asked. What? I've never been with a black man yet. Piper looked at Sophia for reassurance and avoided eye contact with her father. Why do you have to talk like that? Do you have any idea how you sound? A bunch of Yankees from upstate New York looking down on a working man? Like, get a clue and a brain, Dad. Answer my question. Do you like that nigger? You came out here bubbly as all hell earlier, and now, before he leaves, you're trying to see him again? Her father accused Piper. Oh my God, that's why you're here? I was trying to talk to you, not Jabari. Then he told me to fuck off. You guys don't think you're grasping at straws? Piper knew none of these men were around when they had sex, throwing her hands up in the air. Don't worry about me. You didn't answer my question. Her father strained, trying to discipline her in front of her fiancé. Signor Piper, she has a bloody heart, Sophia interjected. Bleeding heart. My daughter a damn liberal. I don't know what the college is doing to you, but I'm not too fond of it. We might need to transfer you or take you out altogether. Once you get married to Douglas, you won't need to work no way. Dad, can you please stop trying to ruin my life? Piper rubbed the bridge of her nose. You look me in the eyes and tell me you ain't never fucked that nigger, Douglas demanded. I never fucked a nigger, Piper said without hesitation. Sophia said nothing, averting her gaze, excusing herself to find Jabari's truck. You three are acting like douchebags. Leave Jabari alone. He's making this place better, Piper demanded. He does do good work, the squire admired the trimming alongside the house. I mean, this was the main issue right here. And man, look at it now. I mean, I might need him for my mama's house. Shut the fuck up, Matthew. Douglas stomps off with Matthew in tow. Piper hugged her father. I'm sorry for yelling at you, Dad. I know you're not happy about your wedding, but understand you are what the movement needs. But does the world need your movement? Piper pleaded as she often did with her father to leave his friends. Sweetie, when your grandfather died, I told him I would do this. It was in his will, her father explained. You hated your father and granddad. Piper quickly withdrew, hugging herself as she attempted to calm herself down. You hate me too? Her father sighed, holding his heart. I hate the man you became. Piper surprised herself at her honesty, covering her mouth. You sound like your mother. You're a high school history teacher. How do you become the Grand Wizard of the KKK? We live in a mansion, and you can't see the hypocrisy of telling rich white men of all people that they're oppressed? I don't even want to talk about it. I won't be here this weekend. I'll stay with a friend and check out the museum. What museum and with who? So you can send Douglas to spy on me? No, because I'm your father. I'm trying to get a group together to head to NYC. I'm going to rent a hotel room and check out the sights, relax, and decompress. You want to see some guy? I won't tell old Dougie, her father teased. Dad, please stop trying to pry into my social life. Piper rubbed her arm, feeling guilty for lying. All right, but I'll at least drive you over. No, that's okay. Too old to get dropped off by your old man? All right, I get it. Well, I'll have Jeffrey take you. No, I'm going to take an Uber. My daughter's going to take a cab from Rochester to New York City. Are you out of your fucking mind? Then pay for a hotel room and sights? With what fucking money? He interrogated. My own money, Piper shrugged. You selling those fucking pills again? You're supposed to be taking those motherfuckers. Her father flashed angrily. I'm not selling pills, Dad, Piper groaned. Good, keep you from doing dumb shit. All right, you fuck up your budget. Don't ask me for a goddamn penny unless you're going to start telling me what's going on with you. You need to be more like that gardening nigger. Work an opportunity and make an honest living. Especially if you don't want to get married. I would love to get married. I would hate being married to Douglas. He's not even my age. I got plenty of friends looking for a young wife. Gross, Dad. So creepy and so gross. What? They're good men. They're frickin' neo-Nazis. You say that like it's a bad thing. It's the worst thing you can be. What the hell are you gonna say when all those niggers, wetbacks, faggots, and camel fuckers come here? All those mixed babies are running around, and we don't have barely any white men left. What are you gonna say then? I'm gonna say thank God I'm a nigger lover, Piper cries, rushing away not to face his judgment. Piper ran to the front of the house, spotting Jabari packing up his truck to go. He spotted Piper in distress, moving his earbuds as she spoke to him in broad view of her fiancé and squire. "Hey, I'm sorry about the way they treated you." Piper held her chest. Jabari couldn't believe it as he looked at Douglas and then at Piper. Jabari nodded, gesturing for her to leave as he handed her a business card. "I'm serious, Jabari. I'm sorry, but I'm going to come visit you this weekend. Clear your schedule." Piper informed him, heading off to console Douglas. Jabari hopped in his truck. He was getting away, deciding whether he would ever return to the property. No one had ever pulled a gun on him before, but he had never made love to someone's daughter right under their nose. He put in his aux cord, blaring Ric Flair drip from his pickup truck, and getting a giggle out of Piper as she nods to the music. "You want me to fuck you and your bestie?" Douglas joked. "Not you," Piper muttered. "I'm going to bed. I'll see you later." Hey, I made reservations for a restaurant tomorrow night. It's at 8 o'clock. When do you want me to pick you up?" "I already made plans this weekend." "Well, cancel them. I want to take my baby out. Your dad says no more wasting time." Douglas rubs his hands together. "I said I already have plans," Piper said slower. "Your husband told you to cancel them. You don't listen very well, do you? I'll come to pick you up at 7, all right?" "Sounds perfect." Piper smiled, intending to have sex with Jabari at 7 sharp. Piper left him outside, returning to her room to rest after so much stress. The Klansmen, however, remained outside. They were gathering in the backyard, mystified by Jabari's work. "Scott, do you trust that guy?" Matthew asked. Piper's father crossed his hands behind his back, inviting the man to walk with him. "Look, man, in 2008, who did you vote for?" "What?" Matthew asked in shock. "McCain," Douglas said proudly. "I voted for Obama," Scott admitted. "Oh, God, me too. Then Fox told me that Obama would destroy the country, and I joined. But I don't know, it seems a lot worse now after Trump." "Don't you dare disrespect Donald Jesus Trump," Douglas puffed off his chest. "I voted for Clinton," Scott shrugged. "Douglas made me vote for Trump." "If Douglas told you to shoot a man dead, would you?" Scott turned quickly, bumping into both men. "You want me to kill that gardener? He seemed pretty nice. I don't know. I never met too many black people, honestly. He didn't really seem like what we talk about, you know. Maybe somebody more like a thug or something. I don't know. Don't make me shoot that guy. I wouldn't tell nobody nothing, though. If y'all did, promise. I won't tell a soul." Matthew rubbed his neck. Douglas's eyes widened with rage and yearning. "Why don't we kill him? I mean, that's why I joined up. Let's get his ass before he leaves." Scott grimaced. "You think that's necessary?" "What are a few years in prison? We got boys in the inside. I'll be welcomed as a hero." Douglas shrugged it off. "You get 20 to life. That's not a few years. You want to throw your life away?" Matthew asked. "I'm a white man and he's a black man. I doubt they'll even convict me for killing him. Look at the Kenosha kid, caught off scot-free." "If we don't carry ourselves better than them, we ain't no better than them," Scott elucidates. "You're getting weak," Douglas accused. Scott quieted down, taking in Douglas's accusation and processing it. "I said I heard you. I'm figuring out what to do with you." Scott turned his back on them, leading the trail forward and walking ahead. "I don't think he liked you saying that," Matthew chided Douglas. "Yeah, no shit. We need to be following that darky and beating his ass. We should have beat his ass while he was here." "Can you fucking drop it? You're not the one hiring him. I am. You suggested some son of a bitch who robbed me and took my money. Look at how good my property looks. Why don't you shut the hell up and say thank you?" "You saw the way Piper looked at him? Like she wanted to eat him. I can't stand that," Douglas fumes, getting to his real problem. "If you take that out on my little girl, we'll have a problem, Dougie. Why don't you do some damn push-ups instead of drinking so much? You might have some abs too," Scott warns. "I'm going to take it out on that black bastard next time I see him." He embarrassed me in front of Piper. You're the embarrassment, Doug, Scott replied. Ooh, he got you, Matthew laughs. Douglas takes out his gun and shoots at Matthew's feet. Scott drew his revolver, fixing at Douglas's head. Doug froze, holding his hands up. Scott pressed the muzzle to Doug's temple, pushing Douglas down to his knees. Should I prove how strong I am, boy? Scott asked, taking off the safety and knocking the trigger, seething. You want me to be like you? Or like me right now? You gonna shoot a brother? Doug asks. If you ever hurt my daughter, I'll kill you. I don't care if you're every color of the rainbow. You hurt my pumpkin pudding, and this shit here doesn't mean a damn thing to me. I'll fucking end you over that little girl, Doug. Now get the fuck off my property and go home. You upset my daughter, and that pisses me the fuck off, Scott roars. All right, crazy old fucker, just calm down. Douglas backed away slowly. Scott fired a shot past Douglas's ear, sending the man running for his car and leaving Matthew behind. Isn't Doug your ride home? Scott asks. I mean, yeah, but I think I might walk home. Doug gets real mean when he's angry. Matthew slowed down. Come on inside, son. I'll have my daughter call you an Uber home. Scott offers. Piper was in the kitchen with Sophia, reminiscing about their afternoon together. You wanted it. I left you two alone. I expected you to come right behind me, Piper teased Sophia. I did not, but it was exciting after I started. Sophia laughed, covering her cheeks. What was exciting? Scott asked innocently. Both women scowled at him, quieting down as they observed the homeowner walking in behind Matthew, as if he were intruding. Tough crowd, hiding his hands behind his back and looking away from admiring Piper's beauty. Perdóname, por favor, necesito limpio en el baño. Sophia excused herself, putting up her ruse as she left Piper. Piper bit her lip, feeling the payback was real, confronted by her father and his squire. Did Douglas chase after Jabari? Piper asked. So that was his name, Scott asked. Piper gulped. I need to call Matthew an Uber home, her father demands. Is he paying for it? Piper asked. I don't have any cash on me, Matthew frowned. That's fine, you need a card anyway. Piper takes out her phone. You see how my bank account is set up, Matthew drifted. Are you quoting Kevin Hart? Isn't that a little hypocritical, Squire? Piper cut her eyes. What? No, that's not fair. He's funny. That ain't a race thing, is it? Matthew held his heart. Piper, what is up with you today? You're so on edge, her father notes. I'm not on edge. I'm just stressed out about this wedding. Piper lets out a deep sigh, feeling as she got a weight off her chest. You don't like Doug? Matt asked. Is that your business? Piper snapped, rolling her neck. I don't like that guy either, Matthew confesses. He's like Leonard from Let's Go to Prison. He gives Nazis a bad name. I like white people, but I don't hate black people. His daddy was an abusive meth head. He can't help it none, Scott defended. He can't help being an abusive asshole after seeing his father's failures. But you all hate people based on their biological, uncontrollable skin color? That's hypocrisy. Piper threw her hands up. Is it always like this here? Matthew asked, laughing with Scott. Will you shut the fuck up? Piper shouts at him. Piper! Scott barks at her. Take him home yourself, Piper shouts, marching off. It's not about how they look, it's about how people act, Scott clarified himself, shouting after his daughter what his mother taught him. Was he willing to lose his daughter over the dreams of his abusive alcoholic father, blaming the black man for his worries and threatening Scott about black people getting all the advantages? Scott believed they got jobs, scholarships, and programs for nothing but being black. Scott tried to see the need for it all. He didn't look out and see people struggling from the ashes of depravity. Scott saw people that went through the same thing as everyone else and were receiving favoritism. He couldn't explain to his daughter how their ancestors had been enslaved since Rome. He couldn't talk to her about how his parents and grandparents were sharecroppers working the jobs that black people left. All she could repeat were the talking points and crying about how black people were oppressed. White people oppressed white people too. Scott couldn't ignore how his movement tried to quell the growth of blacks worldwide despite everything. They were thriving regardless. And since all the kids have shifted to desktops and technology, men like him were forced to hire black and brown people because white people refused to do the work. If they did, it was never cheap. Scott sat consumed in thought, seeking the answer. He felt a familiarity with Jabari he never felt with Douglas. When Piper was born, Scott did everything possible to get his start, from selling meth and pills to working 2 jobs. Once he earned enough money, he could quit and go legit. By the time Piper went to elementary school, he could pay for his and his wife's education. Both were working in public education to keep their family together. Scott wasn't qualified to teach high school and was stuck in elementary school with all his positive memories of his daughter, until he kicked the drugs and got his master's. He was a working man, taking his fate into his own hands no matter what people thought about him. His wife's family hated him. His wife loved him to death, from living in their car to walking around their wing of the mansion butt naked. She held him down no matter what. Was he doing the right thing? "Boss, you all right?" Matthew asked. "Didn't you say you were walking home?" Scott sighed. "Come on, please don't make me walk. It's 5 miles away," Matt begged. "You could use the exercise." "Fuck off, I need to be alone." Scott kicked Matthew out, heading to his den to have a blunt. Chapter 6. Piper was laying in her room, fumbling around with Jabari's business card. How do you talk to anyone about today? Was she high? What the hell was she thinking? She wasn't thinking. When she saw him, her thoughts went silent, feeling enchanted. She could have resisted if he had on a shirt, but when she saw him, little more than a piece of fabric away from satisfying her every curiosity and need, how could she resist? Piper closed her eyes, imagining him on top of her, his drawl in her ear. The idea of Douglas entered her mind. She sat up in disgust, letting out a rueful sigh. Piper couldn't face Jabari. Instead, she could snoop, and snoop she did, following his social media pages. A feeling of fear came over her, sculling through the mind of a very militant pro-black man. It's almost as if the man she met today had been a ruse. She couldn't find a picture of him wearing jeans or shorts, but a suit in every picture. Piper's mouth watered, feeling like she had hit the jackpot, as she rubbed her stomach, grinning ear to ear. "He's got money," Piper sang. "Oh my God, look at that. And oh my God." Piper bounced in her bed, knowing she had good taste. He was single and had no kids. Not only do we live together, fucking pay bills together, but we aren't married single. No woman on his page at all. A young man was living his best life and working hard. "I need to fuck you tonight," Piper bit her lip, calling up Jabari. "Bennet speaking." He answers quickly and curtly as if he were busy. "Hey baby, can I move in with you?" Piper got straight to the point. "What?" "You know you love this pussy. Let me move in with you," Piper enticed. Her phone flashed with a location drop. "Don't talk about it. Be about it." Jabari hung up. Piper was suspicious, wondering if he would want revenge or try to gangbang her with his friends. Fear crept over her, imagining if the things her father warned her about dating black men were true. It seemed better than being passed around a room of her father's friends. She didn't want to end up like her mother at her dad's parties. Piper checked the address on her laptop, checking the lawyers and Street View to know exactly where she was headed, unconsciously calling her Uber before even packing her bags. Once she got done looking at the lakefront condominium, she only had 15 minutes before a ride arrived. Piper took a deep breath, packing as few things as possible to avoid suspicion. Her laptop, tampons, panties, and leggings, believing she could take his t-shirts once she gets there, have him take her shopping. Piper slipped out the side door, locking it behind her to avoid any conversations on her way out. Admiring Jabari's handiwork and passing by where they made love, she noted that they would have seen everything if someone had stood right above the windows. Who could have possibly seen her that tipped off Douglas and her father? As Piper entered the Uber, she turned around. She noted the figure in the window above, the same person who saw her having sex with Jabari. Her mother watched in righteous judgment. Piper froze, realizing she was caught dead to rights, knowing getting inside the Uber wasn't a mere visit to a friend. If she got in the car, she was leaving for good. and needed to figure out her own life. If her mother recorded her, if she had any proof, then Jabari was dead. Piper held her stomach, imagining the child they would have together. Jabari could come with her to California, far from her parents, from Douglas, and in a brand new environment that wouldn't tolerate the relationship at best, but instead celebrated its progress. Piper gave her mother the middle finger, then got in the car, bracing herself for the 1-hour car ride to Buffalo. Piper called Jabari, letting him know she was on the way, japing and stalling him on the phone to hear his voice as Piper listened to him rushing around to clean his place for her. She hadn't even showered in the afternoon. Still, it made the anxiety bearable as they picked out a movie to watch from when she arrived.
Chapter 7. Meanwhile, Piper's mother had not taken the disrespect lightly. Not only had her daughter been fornicating under her roof, her daughter was ruining the marriage arrangement she had orchestrated perfectly. There was a light knock on the door of Scott's den as Scott sat lighting up his 5-headed bong. He choked at the sight of his wife. He was cursing under his breath as he tried cleaning up. "I already know you're in here doing drugs, Scott." She unlocked the door with her fingernail, walking right into his man cave. Scott avoided eye contact, looking away from his wife. "Hi, dear." "Did you kill the black man as I asked you to do?" she asked, crossing her arms over her chest. "No, I paid him." Scott twiddled his thumbs and fingers. "Paid him? Did I not tell you what he did to our daughter?" "They said they hadn't seen each other," Scott shrugged. "He mounted her like she was an animal. Right before my eyes, Scott. I watched the entire thing." "If it happened, and you saw the whole thing, did you record it? Did you confront them?" "What? Do you think I'm some pervert to film my daughter in the middle of coitus?" She whispers. "Jesus Christ, Helen. You have had sex before." "You could say sex," Scott groaned. "Yeah, she was having sex with a black man." Helen cleared her throat, licking her lips. You need to do something about it." "You want to have sex with a white man and get back at them?" Scott suggests. "What? No, I wanted you to kill him. Why didn't you?" "It's 2022. What the hell is wrong with you people? Why are you so obsessed with race?" Scott groans, not wanting to deal with the bullshit in the middle of his smoke session, listening to Eddie Murphy Raw. "At least come smoke with me." "I would never do such a thing." "Helen, we met smoking together." "Those were different days, and I'm a new woman. I was born again in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ." "I might need to be born one more time to eliminate racism." Scott took his bong back out, taking a giant hit, lighting all 5 heads and drowning out his wife with the bubbles. "You can act like a child all you want. That Mandingo did not pull out, and he came right inside of her, Scott. They didn't use any protection, and I thought I told you to tell him not to have sex with her. I told you she wouldn't be able to resist. I mean, she wouldn't be able to protect herself." Helen spits her sentence out so quickly that Scott can't respond, repeating herself with insistence. "You think maybe, just maybe, she likes the guy? Hell, I like the guy more than Doug or that Squire Doug is always beating up." "Doug is essential to the movement. He'll take over so you can retire." "Douglas is a psychopath, not a leader," Scott corrects. "What has gotten into you?" "I thought you enjoyed the movement," Helen was shocked to hear. "I like drinking beer, hanging out with our friends, and people kissing my ass everywhere I go. Not all this other shit. No one said anything about having to kill nobody. I thought the Klan was over, to be honest. Then Obama became president and all the racists came out of the woodwork looking for some fucking leader. Holy fuck, we spent all this time doing what? We can't even help ourselves. That boy Matt didn't even have cab fare." Scott sucks his teeth. "I can't believe you said that monkey's name in our house." Helen held her chest. "You voted for that goblin McCain." Scott slaps his face. "I did like a true patriot, and I donated to Mitt Romney's campaign." You don't care that your daughter's having sex with a black man? Helen asks again. Am I about to drive for hours to fight someone for my daughter liking them? No, I'm not. Who cares what she wants? Helen rolls her eyes. I care. I care what she wants. She used to tell me everything. She used to call me her best friend. She used to do everything with me and always be by my side. Then she got to middle school, and she never spoke to me since that February. Do not bring up February. Helen smacks her forehead, taking a deep breath as she rubs her third eye. She asked me in front of all our friends, our family, in our church, Daddy, why are you a racist? In the middle of a goddamn Martin Luther King Jr. movie. She pointed at the men and hoses and said, that's my daddy, that's my daddy. She never forgave me. She never looked at me the same. And the more she learned, the smarter she got, and the more she hated me. My best friend in the whole wide world, the one person I thought would love me unconditionally my whole life, resents me, hates me to my core, and lies to my face because that no good alcoholic woman beating daddy didn't want to get a job and wanted to complain about black people. Scott, you need therapy, and you need black Jesus. I'm not losing my daughter over some wannabe redneck bastards who rather storm the damn White House than fix their country. Piper had avoided Douglas for years. She even moved to California to escape him. So be it if she fell in love at first sight, Scott finalized. He came inside your daughter. He fucked her throat, Scott, your best friend. He fucked her like a common whore and was doing drugs with her on our property, Helen repeated. Then you kill him, Helen. Scott turned on his Blues Tooth playing Fuck the Police by NWA as he lit up his bong once more, closing his eyes and ignoring his wife. I'll suck your dick right now if you call the boys on him, Helen stated. No, I'm not going to prison for the rest of my life for anything less than sex. Fine then, I'll handle it myself, Helen shouted, slamming the door behind her. Helen held her chest outside the door, unable to get the impure images out of her head. She was unable to stop imagining herself from playing in her head. Helen even sent Sophia to intervene, and instead it backfired. Helen feared she would be next if she didn't kill this young black man who invaded her home with his big dick and ab muscles. Helen slowly opened the door, too overwhelmed by her desire. Helen pulled out of her pants and bent over the couch. Woohoo! Scott cheers, shimmying out of his pants and rubbing his erect dick. He mounted his wife, sliding inside of her. Helen hid her disappointment, but as she closed her eyes, imagining the gardener, she couldn't hide her moans. Helen melted around her husband's dick, moaning and shuddering as Scott worked himself like a jackhammer into his wife. Harder, harder, Helen quipped, wanting to feel like her daughter this afternoon. Yes, please. Oh, God, Scott called, pulling out of Helen. Helen frowned, remembering the young couple having sex multiple times, taking breaks and returning to the act like rabbits. After the first time, she thought she could wave it off and ignore it. Then they had sex again, and then her maid. Everyone but her. She had never even seen a black man in person before today. Too fearful of greeting him at the door. Now she couldn't stop thinking about him. Do you want to go again? Helen asked, lying on her back as she saw what Piper doing to entice the gardener. Oh, God, are you trying to give me a heart attack for the insurance money? Scott held his back. I done gave you my best lovin', woman. That's all I got in the tank. I know. Helen sighed, soothing her husband. Want me to call Douglas to kill the gardener? Scott held up his phone. Helen held up her chest, feeling the burning between her legs she hadn't quelled. Now all she wanted was to suck a dick and smoke a blunt before going back to bed. Helen liked nothing about the lust overcoming her senses. Could she live the rest of her life never satisfying this feeling she had? Maybe we should sleep on it. Helen rubbed her head. All right, see you in the morning, Scott yawned, standing up. Where are you going? Crosses don't burn themselves. You see my robes? I think Sophia folded them with the linens again. God damn it, those are ceremonial robes. You don't just wash them with the damn bed sheets. I don't do the laundry. Helen snapped, feeling frustration overtake her, needing an orgasm. Can't you get it up one more time for me? Helen, if you want me to have the boy killed, I'll bring it up tonight and we'll go look for him. Helen bit her lip. He laid her down and she screamed. You couldn't imagine how she sounded with him inside of her with that big thing. Christ, are you jealous? Scott asked. There was a silence until Scott let out an uncomfortable cough, feeling his pride a bit shattered. Maybe he should have killed this guy for how his wife is acting. What? No! Helen blushed. Then why were you watching them for so long? Why didn't you stop them? He scratched his head. I wasn't being some voyeur. I needed to watch so I could tell you all. Yeah. You know, how else would you have believed me if I didn't see it all happen? Helen swallowed, feeling guilty. I saw him leave hours ago. You had a long time to confront them, Helen, Scott growled. What? I saw him leave hours ago. You had a long time to confront them, Helen, Scott growled. Helen smiled. I saw her getting in a cab, and she gave me the bird. The bird! She told me she was visiting a friend to the museum. That she goes off in his truck? Oh, well, it wasn't a truck. Well, Piper didn't leave with him, but how dare she lie to me about where she's going? Well, I don't know where she was going, Helen sighed, feeling her head. Didn't you talk to her? Scott asked. No, I was, watching from the window again. Helen hid her face. You almost had me killed, the best damn landscaper I've ever had, because you and that goddamn window are our crazy-ass liberal daughter. I could be bending over and coughing down in county jail right now. Scott slapped his face. I'm sorry. I gotta go. You think about what you're starting, Helen. If I go to prison for killing that boy, I'll probably die in prison. I can't do that kind of time. Scott grabbed his car keys and left Helen. Helen made sure he was gone before she went to her prayer room. She locked the door, opened a small cupboard no one knew about, and got on her knees, crossing her legs as she took out a foot-long, black veiny dildo. Chapter 8. Forgive me, God. Helen sobbed as she smacked the suction cup against the wall, licked and sucked all over the head, unable to stop visualizing the young man. Helen stripped naked as Eve, gripping the wall and eased her hips back. Oh, yes. Lord, yes. Helen raised her leg, easing the dildo inside until her eyes rolled to the back of her head, catching her breath and releasing her orgasm. Helen remained on her knees, panting. She prayed for God to remove her desire for black men for so long. Throughout her childhood in an all-white neighborhood, Helen always attracted black men's attention for her hips and butt. White men rarely noticed her until she met Scott. Scott worked out and exercised with her, and they improved their diets. Instead of losing weight, Helen's butt grew tauter and more voluptuous. She dressed to hide the body that brought her so much shame. Yet at least once a month needed to try her new form of prayer whenever she felt unloved, knowing here, in this room, she could be delighted with herself and understand what she truly wanted. Once they moved upstate New York, she couldn't stop the attention and flirting she received from black men, with only her convictions preventing her from resisting the adoration. In some ways, it scared her to think wherever she went, some black men would flirt with her, until a man informed her it was because of the same butt she hated so dearly. Her wardrobe changed, and she spoke about the attention less to Scott, keeping it as her secret and guilty pleasure whenever she was out shopping alone. Her father and grandfather were lifelong Democrats, calling themselves the true Democrats for the beliefs in protecting their interests as whites. They believed non-whites were incapable of living without whites, so white people needed to control everything, predominantly non-white resources and labor, out of a fear of mismanagement. Her mother and grandmother were both thicker women as well. Helen and her daughter Piper accrued endless ridicule and abuse for their Eastern European body shapes. Helen suckled all over the dildo she's had since her teens, when the attention began. She locked herself in her room all weekend with a bottle of lubricant until it was time for church on Sunday. The KKK preacher told her the evils of integration and the dangers of black people. Helen then rushed home after church to return to the deed. She carried her desire with shame, hiding it so far deep it bubbled up in hatred. Helen felt it possible to overcome her lust with hatred. She eased herself back on her dildo, speaking tongues, and began fitting it halfway in before needing to hop off. Helen had fallen asleep in her pram room from exhaustion, imagining the young gardener rearranging her insides. Helen was found naked with the dildo inside her body, as she had started riding it before passing out from her orgasm. "Sophia!" Helen cried out. "Senora, are you okay? The screaming." "What? Whatever do you mean?" Helen tried covering herself with her clothes, but hadn't had time to put them on before Sia raised a giant piece of silicone. "You want this?" Sophia asked, removing her ruse and speaking in her native Brooklyn accent. "Yes, please. Just give it back, and we can keep this all a secret." Helen begged like an addict. Sophia shuddered, feeling powerful as she slapped the phallus in her hands. Helen bent over, grasping her legs, thrilled as Sophia stuffed her like a turkey. Sophia took out her frustrations on her mistress, pumping her as she watched Jabari do Piper. Helen thanked her profusely, the first time Sophia ever remembered Helen saying thank you, as Helen squirted and creamed all over the phallus. Sophia shoved the entire phallus inside of Helen, believing she had killed her for a second until Helen began blinking and nodding her head. "Thank you, Sophia." Helen weakly raised her hand. "You people are crazy." Sophia put away her cell phone camera, in the perfect position to capture it all, yet Helen was too inebriated from ecstasy to notice. To Helen it was all a dream, and it never happened. Sophia closed the door, locking it before leaving so no one else would find Helen. Sophia went back to her room in the home. She was replaying the video, laughing hysterically at how such a racist white woman could have such a hunger for black men. Sending it to her husband. It seemed equivalent to the highly homophobic members of Congress being homosexuals themselves, too ashamed by social pressure to admit who they are, and too scared to be happy, so they ruined the lives of people who had acceptance. Chapter 9. Piper woke up naked in Jabari's arms. She stretched out, kissing him good morning, then did a Spider Woman to kiss his friend. Jabari was a heavy sleeper. He let her in, then ran off to fix someone's tire before coming back covered in grease and oil, explaining he had to change a person's tire and then got a second call, and a third while working for roadside assistance overnight on call. She didn't even know he had returned, but was grateful. Piper got out of bed, browsing his condo and furniture. Piper entered the kitchen, intimidated by the lack of ready-made foods or meal prep. Instead, she picked up eggs and bacon, biting her lip and debating using a delivery app for breakfast. She went to his backyard where he had a jacuzzi and zen garden. Sliding into the hot tub naked, Piper felt at peace, taking in the energy of the apartment. She heard Jabari shuffling outside before she could explain herself. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get out of bed." It's cool." He yawns. "Did you take out the bacon and eggs?" "Oh my God, I completely forgot. I am so sorry." "Piper, you gotta relax." Jabari hugged her close. Piper was confused, expecting him to scream and shout, make her immediately go pick it up, tell her how it wasn't what his mother would have done, and ask if that's how her parents raised her. Instead, she smelled the bacon. "That's not pork," Piper notes. "It's beef bacon. You hungry?" he asks. Piper nods humbly. "Do you need help?" "I think you need to relax. Just chill out. I'll be back, alright?" Jabari offers to turn on the sound system. "Thank you, baby. I can't wait for you to get back." Piper smiled, slipping into the hot waters. Jabari flipped the bacon and returned to his room. He was rolling up blunts rather than joints, grabbing a bottle of champagne and orange juice, setting his drinks on the counter as he removed his bacon and used its fats to fry a few eggs. After flipping his eggs, he returned to offer the party favors to Piper. "Oh my God, thank you." Piper clapped, splashing in the waters as she climbed out. As Piper took the drinks and weed, Jabari was mesmerized by her plump apple bottom. She kissed him on the cheek and he held his face, blushing. Piper headed back inside and grabbed a couple of glasses. She saw the spread of food. Jabari followed closely behind her, pressing his heart out against her butt. Piper held his head, kissing him as he slid inside of her. Piper closed her eyes, chewing a piece of beef bacon, realizing she couldn't return to pork. Jabari pulled out of her as effortlessly as he entered, heading over to the egg, setting their plates as Piper nuzzled his neck. Jabari lifted her onto the counter as they passionately kissed. Jabari kneaded and slapped her butt as Piper felt proud of her body, rather than being told she needed to eat less and work out more. "You hungry?" Jabari asks again. "Yes, but you don't want me?" Piper shrugs. "Yeah, I want you to eat." Jabari laughs. "I mean sex." "We had sex. Let's have some QT." He recommends. "What?" "Quality time." "Oh, okay, well, I hate to be rude, but I was excited when you pushed up at me a second ago. How about you just come back over here for a bit?" Piper bounced from foot to foot. "You mean like this, baby?" Jabari squeezed in Piper. Piper nodded, eating another piece of bacon as they adjusted to their intimacy. "Do you have work today?" Piper asks. "I mean, I don't have to work. I could be homeless and live under the bridge for free." Jabari ground against her G-spot, making Piper quiver. "Stay home with me today," Piper begs. Please listen to me." "What's up?" "My parents will probably call the cops tonight." Piper bit her lip. "Why?" Jabari grabbed her hair, jerking her head back and making Piper dance against his waist. "They're crazy. My parents would call all my friends to figure out where I was, then have Douglas drag me back. If you stay with me, we can let things die down. And I can figure out how to tell them I'm okay and I'm not coming home because I don't want to live there anymore." "You plan to stay with a guy you just met yesterday?" "Dude, I'm totally pregnant after yesterday," Piper laughs. "Or now. You want a baby with a man you just met yesterday." "Well, I don't want one with a guy I've known for the past 2 years. They're forcing Douglas on me." "Now you're here," Barry said, feeling free to come inside Piper again. She bit her lip, giving him the confidence he was right, whimpering for him to continue as they cuddled over breakfast. Their pace was like a steady stream, holding and feeding one another, pushing their bodies tight to keep their connection. Piper couldn't feel happier, but Jabari was no fool. He took pride in filling up the Grand Wizard's daughter, willing to ensure she was pregnant. Jabari strategized in his head, attempting to figure out how to keep Piper and ditch her family. Sell the condo, sell the truck, and head off the road. That would take a week, maybe a month. The pair had maybe hours or a day before cops kick in his door looking for a missing white woman. But damn, he couldn't keep his dick out of her. As Piper cooed and sang as they picked up their pace, Piper let him know she was hitting her climax. Jabari gripped her hips, slamming into Piper, claiming her pussy as her back arched. He covered her mouth as she screamed out, her body shaking as she held. He covered her mouth as she screamed out, her body shaking as he held her up, releasing her, watching her legs buckle and wobble until she kneeled, giggling. "Those were the only guns they got?" Jabari asked, walking away from Piper unfazed by the sex. "A shotgun, a couple rifles, and a lot of assault rifles. They're trying to build an army to have a stockpile, but they're shitty shots. A bunch of guns and ammo, but they don't know what to do with it." Piper stretched out like a cat before eating more beef bacon. "Only take a few bullets to kill you. They lynched a nigga before?" Piper shook her head, then shrugged. "Doubt it. What the fuck they do? Get drunk, burn shit, listen to heavy metal, burn a cross to worship Satan, then go to church in the morning as if it never happened." Piper shrugged. "Why?" "Well, my father isn't racist. He's just trying to be like your shitty deadbeat dad." My mom is a racist. My grandmother set my father up with my mother. My mother setting me up with Douglas. Oh, my granddad in his will wanted my dad to take over his legacy. But my dad claims to have been a hippie until he met my mother. Piper rants. Then he became the Grand Wizard. Yeah, but they're not happy with him. My dad teaches that if you claim to be the superior race, you must live superior. The truth is that most men who seek him out aren't shit, and all they want is their bullshit validated. Like gang niggas. Jabari scoffed. I guess. I don't know. I think it's about like an army of incels mad they don't get any woman or money, so they take it out on the people who do. There's no division. They're tied up in that red pill misogynist bullshit. But my dad was a fucking history major, Piper explained. Why are you mad at your dad? How do you raise your daughter to stand up for what's right and be surprised when she stands against racism? Piper asked, wiping away a tear. I understand. My parents thought if it wasn't right, it wasn't right. So I drifted away. I came up to Buffalo from North Carolina. I guess I couldn't get away from racism, but I could live a life despite the opinions of others. You have guns? I know how to fight. How would that beat a bullet? You'll be surprised. Jabari shrugs. Don't worry, I won't stay long. Douglas will go crazy if I don't come home in time for his dinner. I can feed you. Can you feed me like this at 7 sharp? Piper held his chin to kiss. Sure. Okay, great. I'll stay. Piper claps excitedly. She doesn't have to leave. I can't just let this slip away. If it comes with such a challenge, it must be worth it. Jabari stated his intention. Come on. It's not like you love me. We don't even know each other. Man, fuck love. You know what I mean? Niggas, they kill for whistling at a white woman, talking to a white woman, or dating a white woman. I'll wheel your pussy out and fight anyone with a problem with it. We can figure out love, but this is for slavery. Jabari slapped Piper's butt walking past her as she grabbed his plate and headed back to the Zen garden. Piper didn't know how to feel, but she knew it made her horny as she snatched more bacon before rushing off to pour her mimosa. Piper was a bit surprised Jabari wasn't listening to rap or hip-hop, not even R&B. Instead, ambient music played as a woman sang in the background. What song is this? I like it. Piper swayed her hips, letting him hold her in the hot tub. The Keeper by Bonobo and Andrea Triana. Holding Piper's hips as she dances to the music he informs. You dance pretty good for a white girl. Jazz dance, hip-hop dancing, ballet. Piper moved gracefully in the water, leaving his arms, letting her body go with the music, rolling her body and bobbing her head. Her voice is so beautiful. I agree, Jabari marveled. Your parents know you're here? No? What you tell them? I didn't say anything. I left. I'm an adult. I don't have to be there. Piper fumed. What's up with you? Jabari asked, drinking the mimosa Piper made for him as she started her second. You know who my dad is and what he does. I only found out yesterday. A buddy told me he had a client who could pay me big money, but will be a tough customer. Yesterday, my dad told me the guy is the Grand Wizard of the clan and to be careful. So here I am with his daughter. Jabari gave all he knew as the song changed to Black Sands by Bonobo. No one's singing in the song. Piper squinted, listening to the music as each instrument seemingly introduced itself, feeling like she was in the producer's mind while creating the track. Piper closed her eyes as a steamy jazz saxophone played, and the guitar continued. I love this song. I love everything about being with you. Jabari held her, kissing her neck, squeezing her tight, knowing he couldn't have her. They enjoyed their time until she returned to her fiancé, life, and destiny. I don't want to go back, Piper mused, sinking in the waters. I don't mind if you stay numb. I've been looking for a girlfriend. I'm looking for a husband. Piper crossed her arms over her chest. I could be that for you too. Jabari said, kissing her as the victorious horns returned. Piper raised her toes, wrapping her arms around his neck as he lifted her in the air. The two studied one another. It wasn't fireworks. It was a symphony of emotions. Piper massaged his back as he lowered her, wondering how people who had met once could feel such a strong bond. They lay in each other's arms in silence, enjoying the orchestra play while sipping their mimosas. The only word Piper had to describe how she felt was peace. A sense of deep peace in her soul, wanting to be nowhere else while the good times unrolled between them. They began smoking through the black sands and felt lost where they belonged. We can't go on living this way, Piper repeated. She said we can't go on in this debate. We can't go on living this way. Yeah, she said a lot. Why did I stand out to you? Jabari asked. I don't want to marry Douglas. And I don't want to go home. But I know they won't let me go without hurting you. They've dreamed of a moment like this to kill someone. I'm going home tonight. But it's not for them. It's to protect you. Piper explained. I don't need you to protect me, baby girl. I got some protection already. You haven't used any protection yet, so for what it's worth, I'm going to stick to my plan. Piper rubbed his chest. I'm serious. I'll kill anyone who comes after us. It'll be self-defense. I ain't letting no crackers put their hands on me. Jabari sterned up. I don't want you and my daddy to fight. I'm your daddy now. You are? Piper gulped. Thank you. Jabari stretched out, lighting the blunt, taking a few short puffs, then handing it over to Piper. You think I can honestly stay with you? I think you can honestly call your parents and say you're moving out, and they honestly won't be able to do anything about it. I think we honestly need to move to a different state. If we head out west, we'll be safe. My grandparents ran up north to be safe. My parents moved to upstate New York to be safe from the hood. And you want to run west to be safe. There isn't no safe unless you make it with your own hands. I'm safe in my home. Those fuckers come around here, I'll end them. Jabari finalized, refusing the blunt. Relax. Piper kissed his cheek, moving between his legs, suckling and licking his penis to calm him down. You love my dick, huh? It's the biggest I've ever seen. If the biggest before you were a Magnum, you're a double-barrel shotgun. You're into guns. I'm not into guns, but I do go shooting. I've been taught since I was 5. 5? You? I started doing lawn care, going around these new neighborhoods, dealing with days like today. Mostly stress relief, but I keep a knife on me now. Jabari nods. We need to kill Douglas. Piper looks Jabari in the eyes, wanting to know his reaction. That's your business. Jabari sighed. I know, but it's our business now. If we want this, and we want to be together, we gotta get the clan off my ass. Piper sighed. If they come to me and attack me, then I have no issue defending myself. I'm not going to prison or the cemetery over some white girl with a black girl's ass. Jabari stood out the water, pacing as he processed what he had done and spoke. Jabari stood out of the water, pacing as he processed what he had done and spoke. Wait, does anybody know anything right now? Piper asked, typing her forehead. I haven't told anyone, and I took an Uber here. Honestly, baby, if I go home tonight, we can keep doing this without anyone knowing. For now. Until we know what we want, then when we know what we want, we can get a place together, build up a nest egg, have some kids and some more kids, because I don't think you'll leave this white girl with a black ass alone. I won't die for you, but I'll live for you. I would not mind locking you down at all. Jabari cooed as Piper refused to give any quarter. She kept all his attention on her. How much sex can we have? I'm going to get rid of Douglas tonight. Don't be surprised if you see me back here later. You can't keep paying for Ubers here and back. It's not your money, Piper shrugged. Why even bother at all? We just met yesterday. We can say our goodbyes and pretend we never met each other if you can't listen to me. That's what you want after in the kitchen? For me to listen? Piper asked, sucking her teeth at him. Jabari remembered how easily he slid inside of Piper, how easily she gave herself and submitted to him. Letting another man take advantage of her nature felt like an insult to his ego. Jabari molded the idea by repeating himself. If they bring the fight to me, I'll end it. I'm not instigating anything. Jabari pours another mimosa. Make yourself at home. I'm gonna lie back down. I'm still exhausted from last night. I'll rub your back, baby, Piper offers to get out of the water. Maybe later. I need to be alone for now. Jabari rubbed her cheek. It's not you. I need to think all this over. How about you enjoy this blunt yourself and come get me when you're done? Okay, Piper frowned. What's wrong? I scared you off, didn't I? I ain't scared of nothing but God. I need to figure out a solution. Don't worry about me, honey child. I got this now. Jabari stares into Piper's soul before releasing her and returning to his bedroom to sleep. Chapter 10. An hour or two had passed before the couple reunited in the kitchen. Neither brought up the time apart after making lunch together. Jabari decided to take the day off to enjoy Piper before deciding she should go home. It made no sense to cause waves if there were none needed. Their affair was little more than a rumor. If they were wise, they could move Piper's things out slowly and buy property. They'd need to run, but moving away would be their smartest bet. She had to finish college after all. So I'm thinking tonight we should watch a movie and I can cook for you, Piper suggests. You ain't trying to go back home? Mango's a little hotter than it needs to be, don't you think? Jabari asked. What? I thought we already decided I would stay. Piper crossed her arms over her chest. Jabari sat down, dressed in a pair of sweatpants and a tank top. He yawns, waking up from his nap and cleaning out his ears. He measures the room before responding, wondering if he was right to keep her. He didn't know what the right thing to do was in the situation. Had she been married, then he would have left her alone from the beginning. She didn't want her fiancé, and I want to go back home. He felt terrible trying to send her back. Chapter 11. Meanwhile, morning arose at the Meyers residence. Scott returned home an hour ago, expecting to find his wife and daughter eating breakfast. Instead, he found Sophia sitting at the table eating cereal and reading the paper. I thought you didn't speak English, Scott asked. That's what you wanted to believe, Sophia shrugs, continuing to eat her frosted flakes. Where is everybody then? Scott asked. Piper's at her friend's house for the weekend, and your wife is praying. Sophia sips her coffee. Got any more of that weed? I got it from Piper. No shit, me too. Scott rubs his chin. But, yeah. All right, now. I'm off to my den to get into smoke if you want to join and watch The Simpsons. What's got into you? Sophia asked, surprised by his cheery mood. You know what? Since you can speak English, I'll tell you. I left last night. I looked at my lawn and said, God damn, this is the best this place has looked, even when I was a boy visiting Helen. Then I was going to the forest for a meal, and I said, fuck it. I'm drunk, I'm high, and I need pizza. So I spent the whole damn night and morning bowling and getting shit-faced. And the owner's an old buddy from high school. We bowled and talked, and he kept the place open all night. Oh, man. And the best part, there's this thing called Uber, where they pick my drunk ass up. My daughter just called me a fucking ride home from wherever the fuck she is, like half an hour ago, saying she's safe and having fun. Man, I'm about to smoke a bowl and take my ass to bed. Scott claps his hand, pours a bowl of cereal and milk and walks away. Sophia nodded, peeking out the window to admire the grass from the opposite entrance. Helen entered the kitchen. I had the wildest dream last night. You were in it, Sophia. We had a great time. I think we were shopping or something. Helen sat at the kitchen table in her bathrobe. I thought I heard your voice. Scott danced inside, kissing his wife on the cheek. Oh, it's you, Helen groaned. You were in my dream, too. I had my dreams come true. The first time we knocked boots since Piper got home from college. I thought we would walk around here butt naked now that she left, Scott mused. If you and I had sex last night, that means... Helen covered her mouth looking at Sophia. Sophia sipped her coffee, standing her ground, wondering how her husband would respond to the news. Sophia poured more frosted flakes, wanting to watch everything unfurl. You don't gotta be so rude about it. I was thinking I can get the blue chewable pill, go at it like we were in our 20s, Scott recommended. Helen buried her head in her arms, sobbing, ripping at her hair as she reconciled what had come over her, refocusing on her goals. Did you and the boys kill that gardener yet? Helen lifted her head, hoping sweet relief had come. What? Scott and Sophia said in unison. I said, did you kill him? Helen asked hopefully. What did he do to you? Sophia asked, shocked. Helen gulped, feeling a different power dynamic. I haven't met him, particularly. And she wants me to kill him. God damn, that's why I went bowling. Scott clapped his hands. You didn't go to the meeting? But you have to go, Helen whined. Hey, guess what? I'm a grown man. I can do whatever I want. I quit. Fuck that. Scott eats his cereal. I retired from teaching to do this all damn day. Every day. Man, I want to eat cereal, fuck my wife, and smoke weed all day. Helen shook her head. You see, this is what your grandfather warned us would happen. You let one in, and what happens? Your whole way of life changes. I was smoking weed and drinking beer long before yesterday. I don't do it in front of you because you act like this. I didn't even know you knew where that room was until last night. Scott laughed to himself. Sophia tried to chew as softly as possible, but couldn't hide what she was watching like she found a new TV show. Well, I thought you had quit smoking and drinking, Helen lied to herself. I did, in front of you. Now you know after my nap, I'll sit by the pool butt-ass naked, have some beer, grill me some burgers and steak, enjoy my freshly cut property, get high as a kite, and listen to Dark Side of the Moon, the Chronic album, and Yellow Submarine on my sound system as loud as goddamn possible. Scott goes off to start enjoying his day. Where is Piper? Is Piper home at least? She has a date with Douglas tonight. Helen tries to regain control over her family. Piper's at her friend's house for the weekend. They're going to some museum in Buffalo. Scott explained what he remembered from yesterday. You let her go to Buffalo? It's too dark out there, Helen whined. Helen, it's a whole frickin' city. Have you ever been to Buffalo? Sophia asked. No one asked you. How do you even speak English out of my dream? Helen was bewildered at Sophia talking back to her. I'm just saying, there's a lot of white people in Buffalo, too, Sophia shrugged. Well, you're saying too much. You might say the wrong thing and end up unemployed, Helen threatened. I wasn't saying too much last night, Chica, Sophia muttered, lifting her bowl of cereal. The color left Helen's face as she removed herself from the kitchen table. Everything she spent her life working toward had fallen apart. Her husband and daughter had abandoned her perfect vision. Helen only knew one way to win them back to her side, a tried-and-true method which she could everything she wanted in one foul swoop. Sophia, prepare my breakfast. It's 3 p.m, Scott coughs, then looks away, minding his business as Helen glares at him. What you want? Sophia asks with a mouthful of flakes. I want some sausage, the big ones, the hot links, and 2 eggs. Helen fanned, wondering what the hell was on her mind, and pancakes. And pancakes with butter and syrup. You can bring it up to my room. I need to lay down. You want me to bring the black pepper, too? Sophia joked. Helen puffed up her chest and then deflated. Cursing under her breath, she walks off to her room to finally rest. Sophia laughed it off, beginning to watch her bowl. Scott scratched his head, confused, returning to his den with the cereal box to enjoy the cartoons he watched as a kid, smoking his weed and drifting off to sleep. Chapter 12. 7 rolled around and Douglas had been ringing the door like wild. Scott and Helen were passed out in separate rooms. Sophia had left to return to her family and search for a new job, telling her husband everything and warning him she didn't want to end up next. Piper and Jabari were mid-coitus as dinner was cooked in the oven an hour away. Douglas called Piper for the 3rd time, wishing she would hurry up and get dressed. "My phone again," Piper panted, looking at the nightstand, wondering who would be bothering her right now in doggy style. "You can get it, baby. I need some juice." Jabari catches his breath, wiping the sweat from his forehead as he lifts himself from the bed. "You serious?" Piper groans, falling at her side. "What's up with you? You don't like juice?" Jabari wondered why her mood switched so quickly. "There's a lot more to living together than sex, Piper." "It's dog," Piper whines. "Why?" Jabari groaned. "He wanted to take me to dinner tonight, but I'm already cooking for you. I'm not going back home, Ari." "Nicknames already, huh?" Jabari rubs his neck uncomfortably. "You don't like it?" "My friends call me Smoke." "Why?" "Because I want all of it." Jabari reached for the phone. "Hello? God damn, I've been ringing this motherfucking doorbell for 10 minutes straight. What the hell is going on?" Douglas fumes, cursing on the other side of the phone. "She's not home," Jabari replied. "Who the fuck is this with my wife?" Douglas demanded. "She's not married to you," Jabari remarked. Douglas was silent. Jabari hung up, heading off to the kitchen to find his juice. Piper was stunned that things could be handled so quickly, yet knew something more sinister awaited them. Piper knew Douglas too well to think simple logic and rationale would work. It wasn't a matter of law to Douglas. He owned Piper in his mind, and even less, wouldn't settle for another man having what he couldn't, especially not a black man. "Jabari, do you think I should go home now?" Piper followed him, clicking her pointer fingers together, dressed in his t-shirt. "You keep going back and forth with this in your head." "I don't want him to kill you over me, baby." Piper held his hands as tears filled her eyes. "You act like I'm some defenseless child." "I act like he has people. He doesn't have to do it himself. He's a coward and probably won't. You have to look over your shoulder constantly. You'll never know what white person to trust, and at any moment one of his people can try to take your life." "I already gotta go through that shit now without any pussy." Piper shrugged, holding her thumb to her chin. "So, I'm like a trophy to you." "Piper, if that's how you need to see yourself, then this is beyond me. You're not my prisoner. You came here of your free will. I'm grateful for your company, and I appreciate your dad's business. I would love to get married to you, but if you're worried about your little dick boyfriend, be worried about me splitting his skull, not the other way around. Then you go to prison. You think I don't know the law? In self-defense, I don't face any charges. I get a court date and a bond," Jabari protested. "Jabari, you're a black man. You know black men don't face justice in America." "Piper, I don't know what Kool-Aid you're drinking, but I studied law. Albeit I specialize in tax law. I still had to learn the rest as well. If your redneck hillbilly inbred boyfriend touches me, I'm beating his ass. There's not a damn thing the courts will do about it." Jabari declares as though he would hear no more on the topic. "So you're a lawyer. Why do lawn care?" Piper was befuddled. "I'm not afraid of hard work, and the customers trust me less. I did it for a while and still work in the office, but I don't mind taking PTO or days off to work on lawn care." "You take PTO to work lawn care too?" Piper drooled. "I did yesterday. I checked into the office. I took the rest of the day as paid time off and cut your lawn and met your wonderful self." "We smoked and had sex." Piper rolled her eyes. "Yeah, I was expecting to cut the grass and go home," Jabari chuckled. Probably should have. Then you could have avoided all this crap with me, Piper frowned. You have no faith in America? Jabari's question caught her off guard. You honestly think things have changed so little? You have that little faith in the legal system or your father? I'm worried about Douglas and my mother. People can't change hell-bent on making things stay the same. I never met your mother. I don't think my mother has ever met a black person face to face and prides herself on it. She hates black people, but never says why. She's never been around black people. Jabari found that impossible to process, being so sheltered. If she can help it, no. If she's forced into the same space as black people, she ignores them entirely. Well, everyone besides Mr. Bob, he used to deliver the mail when I was younger. My mom was always very nice to him when my dad wasn't around. If my dad were gone, she would wait for the mail, talk to him for a while, but he never came inside. Your mom likes black guys. What? No way. Piper laughs. They hate black people. No, her and Mr. Bob would just go talk alone privately. Dude, there's no freaking way my mom cheated on my dad. Why? I don't know. Bullshit. You have to share information. You can't just sit here doing surveillance on me and fucking me too, Jabari accuses. Dude, I don't think like either of you crazy people. Piper throws her hands up. My bad. I'm being honest with you, Smoke. I don't have a good reason for why they feel the way they feel. All their talking points have been debunked. Many of them benefit from the same programs they fight to end. There's just some guy like my dad telling them what they want to hear, even if he doesn't believe it himself, Piper shrugs. Why do it? You know the percentage of black people in America? 12, maybe 13, 15% the highest, I believe. Why? Well, globally, how big is that percentage? Piper insists. Jabari lets out a breath of air. Shit, the majority of the world is brown, yellow, and black. And we are only 10 to 13% of that population. Europe is tiny. It's a peninsula, not a continent. There are not a lot of white people. And we can go extinct in a couple of decades, so we need to control the earth, Piper explained. What? Jabari laughed. Imagine if all the other groups turned against white people. Imagine if Asians and Spaniards wanted to be Asian and Spanish instead of white. Imagine if black people in America truly wanted to be black and only do business with black people or go back to Africa. We would lose everything. If other groups don't need to be Western to get rich, feel happy, or get respect, they won't date or marry white people. Right now, people across the globe want to be American, so we control the world. If that stops, then we have nothing. I know it sounds silly to you because you don't think like that, but they fear the white race's end and our culture's death. Why? Because we've pissed off everyone and have an unsustainable culture, and if instead of changing and accepting what's wrong, we've doubled down. There are no saving guys like Doug. Most will never end their suffering as long as a black man suffers more. That's a sickness. That's all we know. And that's why I can't go back. Piper hugs Jabari's arms as her phone rings again. Piper tilted her head, picking it up without hesitation. Hey, Dad, what's up? Where are you? I'm at a friend's house. I told you that already. Man, Douglas is here cursing up a storm, ringing my damn doorbell like crazy. You with that gardener? We had some friends for him to meet over here. Scott sounded groggy as if he had been drinking heavily. Piper knew she couldn't take too long, or else her dad would know she was lying. Why? because Doug and your mother keep going on and on about how you two are having sex and how you're with him, and I'm fucking hungover and I'm ready to kick his ass just for having these two bothering me," Scott complained. "I'm sorry, Dad. They seriously need to mind their business. Look, Dad, I'm with a friend. I promise you, I'm safe. I'm not doing anything to disrespect you. We literally just spoke this afternoon when I called you an Uber. Why are you doing this now? You need to get on home, Piper. I'll let this all go and pretend nothing happened. Just get home." Scott hangs up. Piper frowned. "At least we're friends." Jabari hugged her. "I don't just want to be your friend. Friends don't have sex. I want to be your woman, your wife. I'll get going soon. This is just so unfair. I'm a woman. They can't just control my life." Piper held her neck, sobbing into his chest. Jabari couldn't speak. He didn't know this woman from her apple bottom, but he felt horrible for even considering sending her back to such an environment. The idea of his death was flung around like second nature. He feared what would happen to this woman facing her parents and that beer-belly neo-Nazi. Chapter 13. When Piper arrived home, there were a score of pickup trucks, SUVs, Humvees, and cars outside her home. Men surrounded the Prius, pulling up to the house, banging and screaming at the driver to stop. The elderly Asian man nearly had a heart attack trying his best to turn around and escape with his life. Piper quickly slipped out of the car, screaming, "It's a fucking Uber!" The crowd settled down, feeling silly as the terrified Korean-American man screeched away, never having faced so many white-hooded men with guns and weapons in his life, believing racism was fake, a boogeyman black people made up to excuse all their failures. The Uber driver drove in shock and was forced to stop a few houses away to regain his composure, calling his wife and children frantically, calling everyone who knew who would listen to his horror, calling the police. Piper marched up to the house, having to cross the entire yard, being escorted by the army of men, some wearing hoods, some wearing combat gear. Others are adorned in swastikas and Proud Point insignias. And her father sat on the porch drinking a cold beer, smiling as his daughter came home. "Hey there, pumpkin pudding." Her father greeted her warmly in front of her boys. "Hey, Adolf." Piper crossed her arms over her chest. "Where is he?" Douglas snapped. "Who?" Piper played dumb. "I was at the museum with my friends." "The man on the phone," Douglas interjected, stomping up. "You did all this because you heard my friend's brother. Are you that insecure? He didn't like how you were talking to me or calling me. He felt concerned, like you were some possessive, abusive psycho." "Oh, wait." Piper rolled her eyes. "Your mother says she saw him raping you, and I heard him on the phone talking to me," Douglas retorted, enraged. "My mother hasn't told me or talked to me about anything, and Jabari hasn't done anything to me at all. You told these people who raped me? He hasn't harmed me at all." "So you were with him," Scott sighed, rubbing his temples. "I said I was with a friend," Piper yells. "You're lying," Douglas grinned. "Why lie, Piper? Are you kidding me? Look at all this commotion. What were you going to do to him?" "And I did not lie about anything. I was with my friend, and they're scared for me because my fiancé calls, cursing and yelling at me, and that's not too loving. Now I came home to an army of white hoods for what? Because I don't want to be with you, Douglas? Is it not hard to believe a woman want to be with someone who acts like this for getting stood up for a supper date?" Piper storms off inside the house. "You told him he raped her." Scott sucked his teeth, wondering why all these men were at his house with their trucks on his fresh-cut lawn. "Well, your wife called me saying he harmed your daughter and kidnapped her. She told me every detail about how they had sex yesterday. Then she told me I needed to kill him." Douglas recalled the truth. "So you know this marriage isn't going to happen, right?"
Scott sat up as police cruisers blocked off the exit to his home. What the hell is going on here? The drunk men cheered, greeting the police as brothers. The squad cars piled up, forming a line of cover as the officers ducked behind their vehicles. Scott gulped. Fix that real quick. Scott gulped, rushing from his porch as a large man with a thick Indian accent began bellowing for everyone to drop their guns and put their hands in the air. Scott gulped, rushing from his porch as a large man with an Indian accent began bellowing for everyone to drop their guns and put their hands in the air. Scott raised his hands, trotting up as the drunk men started cursing and shouting, withdrawing their hospitality replaced with acerbic slurs and shooting threats. Calm down, Scott shouts. Put your fucking hands up and shut the fuck up. Scott panted, bracing himself on his knees as he caught his breath. Sir, the large Gujarati officer met with Scott. Police Sergeant Narav Mehta. A man called reporting a group of hooded men with guns stomping his car, kidnapping his passenger while threatening to kill him. What? Scott rubbed his temples, looking back at his men. All of you are under arrest and must be taken into custody for questioning. All will open fire without prejudice. Sergeant Mehta spoke. It was absolute. Whoa, buddy, let's defuse this really quick, brother. You're one of us. You want a beer? Scott raised his hands, moving out of the line of fire if things went awry. I'm the homeowner. My daughter was missing, so we went out to look for her, but she turned up. And we thought the kidnapper dropped her off, but it was a cab driver. Where is your daughter to confirm this story? The sergeant asks. She's inside, but she's distraught. You see, she had been with her friend the entire time, and her fiancé thought she was cheating. So you're going to kill the man. Why not call the cops? The sergeant had zero sympathies, motioning behind him for the police to load their weapons and prepare for a fight. Get your daughter out here in 1 minute, or we're going to start arresting everyone. And if these men resist, we won't. Piper! Someone go get me Piper! Get her quick! Scott shouted out, trying to amend things. Sergeant Mehta and Scott were solemn as no one reacted to his commands. They ignored Scott outright for attempting to negotiate peace with the brown cop. There had already been a long time following with Scott's leadership. The marriage to Douglas was to replace him with a new leader, to pass on the torch and recreate the golden era of the clan. Yet, as a history scholar, Scott did his best to teach cultural pride and to steer wayward souls to the right side of history by proving their superiority, not relying on skin color. But most of these armed men in hoods would have nothing without being white. Their skin color and penis were all they had, and they would kill anyone threatening it. Piper hid away in her mother's prayer room, locking the closet door from the inside. She tried to call Jabari. She didn't know why she was calling him, but it was all she could do to cope with her anxiety. Too many men were in and around her house to relax or smoke alone. People were screaming for her, ripping doors open and looking for her. Piper whispered as best she could and strained as he could to hear Piper. You have to come to get me. I'm so scared, Piper cries, murmuring into the phone, wiping snot and tears from her face. There's so many drunk men wearing hoods. They were going to kill you. I can try to find a way out and use my neighbor's address to call her right out. So it is your house with all the cop cars and Klansmen. All over my fresh-cut lawn. Jabari ticked his tongue, pulling up with his Lincoln Continental staking out the house. You're here? They will kill you, Piper cries out, her heart racing. I didn't come alone. You called the cops? Never that, Jabari laughed, breaking the tension. Don't worry about me. It looks like the cops of the clan are about to have a shootout. Where are you? Maybe I can get to you and we can get away. That's one idea. Where's your neighbor's house? Across the backyard, there's a trail from our neighbor's yard in the side street. I saw it on my mower. I'm pulling around now. I want to get away before the bullets start flying. Jabari cruised past the street, riding up the road, being directed by the police officers to detour from the war zone. You followed my Uber? They show you the trail when you call the ride. I didn't feel right sending you to face your father alone. Jabari explained why he used his phone for the ride. I'm on my way. I need to stop by my room. Piper? Mom? Piper hit her phone. Who are you talking to in here? I was talking to God. Piper hid her phone behind her back. What are you holding, sweetie? Helen asked, worried. Nothing, Mom. Piper shuffled towards the door. I can't explain, honey. Helen held her chest. Please explain, Piper said, genuinely confused. I have a hunger, sweetie. A hunger I can't sate, and I try so hard to hate these people. I do, but I want them so badly. I want it. So this is what I do. I pray the jungle fever away, but God, I can knock it over it. I need it, Piper, I need it. Piper raises her phone, her face etched with confusion. Helen shattered to pieces right before her daughter, stammering, embarrassed, and vulnerable in her sanctuary. What the fuck are you talking about, Helen? Piper threw her hands in the air. I have, no idea right now what is going on. And I just want to freak out. So you really did it with Mr. Bob? Oh, my poor baby, I'm so sorry. Helen hugs Piper as Piper begins crying. Both drop to the ground as the shooting begins, deafening booms and explosions as the clan unloaded their clips. The police hid behind their cars, allowing their enemy to exhaust their rounds. As the volley slowed, Narav gave his order to return fire, ripping through the sheeted men and then moving on to the rest. Red sheets littered the ground as men began fleeing without cover or even tall grass to conceal themselves. A week ago, the property looked like a proper battlefield. The manicured cut grass gave no concealment for their rifles. While they attempted to reload and return fire, they stood little chance. More squad cars arrived with the SWAT, FBI, and CIA, and the police descended onto the Klansmen, fleeing for cover as they awaited the National Guard. Helen held on to her daughter for dear life, crashing to awareness of the danger she brought to Piper. I have to go. Piper fought through her tears, gripping her mother. Helen feared the idea of being alone if either the cops or the boys returned to the house. She hadn't any idea Scott was bleeding to death in the front yard. Helen feared what would happen to her in prison, or being the only woman left alone in a room of horny men after a battle. Take me, please. Helen pleads. I can't do that. Piper shook her head. Is it the gardener? Helen asks. Yes, fucking yes, I fucked the landscaper. Piper shouts, yes, I loved it. He's hung like a horse. I saw everything from the window. You really started all this shit? Do you even understand the last time I had sex? I don't know. It's been forever. I finally find a guy who's attracted to me and you try to kill him? Piper fumed. No, Douglas did all that. I can't handle my feelings of watching my daughter have sex with a black man. Helen confesses. Why were you watching us? I wasn't watching you. I was watching the gardener. I imagined myself there. Helen explained with her fingers. That doesn't sound better. I thought you hated black men. Piper shook her head, unable to understand. Helen sighs, walking to her cupboard and pulling out the foot-long, veiny black dildo, slapping the suction cup against the wall and holding her hands out. That's what you do in here? Can you fit that whole thing in you? Piper plucked it, disgusted yet intrigued by the grotesque caricature of her lover's penis. Yes, please, get me out of here, please. Helen demands. Give me your phone. I don't have my phone. Give me your phone, Piper demands. I don't have it. Piper quickly snaps pictures of her mother next to the dildo, the look of dread and fear in Helen's face and trying to hide her face. Sally, it had all been a video recording of the entire conversation. Helen leaped for Piper, but Piper slipped out of the room, running for the backyard. Jabari pulled up behind the house, trying to keep a low profile with white men fleeing for their lives away from the carnage. Those who did see him didn't stop sprinting past the dark sedan in the shadows, seemingly unrelated to anything going on acres away. Chapter 14. Piper found herself running for her life with a crowd of men doing all they could to go in different directions, cursing the situation, wishing they had stayed home. The sirens in the distance and the flashing, blinding colors of the American flag disoriented all the white men who wanted to discuss their racial superiority. Fleeing from the police they were once believed to be their allies. They were hunted down by the united forces rising against them. Piper looked over her shoulder to find her mother in tow. She was hauling ass barefoot, not to be left alone in the house when things played out. Piper relented, taking a hard left, exposing the location of Jabari's sedan. Piper slid into the passenger seat and Helen fell into the back. Jabari pulled off the millisecond he heard the second door close, ripping away from the scene right before the cops closed the exits, creating a perimeter barricading all the fleeing Klansmen. Douglas had been running when he saw Piper and Helen climbing into the car. Patrol didn't begin to paint how Douglas felt. If he survived, he vowed to take revenge. Presently, he was fleeing from Toon police, trying his best to zigzag away until tripping over Matthew's dead body. Doug hit the ground hard as the police dog piled on top of him. They were punching and stomping him for making them run. Douglas was letting out an agonized scream of pain and wondering when the police would stop, pleading that he couldn't breathe to no avail. When Douglas made it to the squad car, his eyes were shut, his nose broken, his teeth chipped, and his skin black and blue. When Doug threatened to sue, an enraged cop shot him straight through the eyeball, dropping Douglas where he was and leaving his body to bleed out, running off to attempt to arrest the next person. Douglas coughed up blood, thinking about the Blue Lives Matter emblem on his pickup truck, shot to death by a fellow white man. His body felt cold, envisioning Piper escaping with her lover. His ambition all left in a warm pool beneath his cold, stiffening body. The cops lost numbers as the Klan took over the house, shooting from the cover. They reloaded as both sides exhausted all their ammo, energy, and men. Reinforcements arrived from the surrounding cities, finally able to subdue the movement. The hooded men were fighting fist to fist with the boys in blue. Each was out of ammo as they tried to contain the situation, with reinforcements arriving to relieve the exhausted police. The house was locked down after a bitter cold massacre, gunning down the unarmed white men, left spewing racial epithets or begging for mercy. Chapter 15. The trio returned to Buffalo, frightful, tired, and starving. Piper had her evidence, but didn't know if she could trust her mother fully, so she devised a plan. Helen sat in the kitchen alone while Piper and Jabari spoke in the Zen garden. After Piper pleaded for Jabari to pour up and roll up to cut the edge, she relented, leaving her to go to the bedroom. Jabari was hypervigilant, unable to separate himself from the massacre he watched, feeling bad for the men in hoods dissected by the armed forces. It was hard to ignore Helen sobbing and mourning at her kitchen table. Piper warned him about her hatred, but he couldn't help his good nature. "Can I get you anything? A drink, or have you eaten?" Jabari sits at the table. "My deepest condolences for your loss." Helen wiped her eyes. "I haven't eaten much of anything today." "I only had watermelon and fried chicken. Is that okay?" Jabari adjusted, getting a smirk from Helen, who rolled her eyes, looking away. "Piper cooked earlier. I think we have leftovers I can heat up." "Piper cooks?" Helen found it the most amusing thing she had heard, laughing. "I didn't know she could boil water." "It was delicious. Piper had me buy duck and couscous on Instacart. She's a passionate cook." "She always talked about attending a culinary arts school. I finally talked her out of it. When she got valedictorian, I hoped she knew she could do more than cook." "Do things matter more than happiness?" "Of course they do. Sometimes what makes us happy is bad for us." "I think if it's bad for us, it doesn't truly make us happy. We try to convince ourselves to subdue the self-destruction. I've never eaten food like hers before. Piper has a year left in Cali, and I'll pay for the 10 culinary art school. We can get married in Cali or New York with your blessings. You would do that for her? Why not tell her to run away with you and drop out? Helen poked fun at their dreams. I made sure I got my law degree before drifting off to try projects. Then those small projects turned to millions of dollars. I get to do what I love. So as I did, she should do what she needs to do or what she wants. Jabari explained. Helen Meyers. Helen extended her hand with a bright smile. Did you say you're a lawyer? Jabari Bennet. He kissed her fingers, leaving her for the fridge. Helen bit her lip, admiring the spacious condominium for the bachelor. The idea of him wanting her daughter pissed her off to no end, but she couldn't explain to herself why. So I saw you two yesterday. You had sex one time, now you want to pay for Piper's school. I didn't even know black men believed in marriage. Helen perished at the thought. It's been a long time since I dated. I'm busy, and the women I meet only want me for my money, not my time or heart. Piper, well, sorry, but she submitted to me and gave me all of her. It's hard not to reciprocate. Barry shrugged off the question with the truth, popping the metal roaster covered in tinfoil into the oven for dinner. You must have enjoyed yourselves. Helen looked over her shoulder at the duck, hearing her stomach growl. You have quite the daughter. I would be a fool to turn her loose. I mean, you're a mom. I don't want to be disrespectful, but I just feel after what we've done, it'd only be right to marry her. Jabari fumbled with his words, but stood on his principles. This is my first time talking to a black man. You're as scary as I thought. Helen walks around Jabari, lifting his arms and observing him. You have so many scars and muscles.
You have met like normal people before, so you know this is super awkward, right? Jabari asked, holding Helen's arms at her side. Helen's heart raced with anticipation as he grabbed her. Helen stared at him with doe eyes, wondering what he would do with her. Jabari raised his hands, backing away, feeling like he committed murder, touching Helen. I have to handle something real quick, Jabari excused himself. Is there a spare bedroom where I can sleep? Helen rubs her arm, following behind Jabari. Well, I turned the second bedroom into a home office. There's my room and the couch, and I need my room right now. Jabari sighs, opening the door. Helen waltzed into Jabari's room, curious how he lived, rubbing her chin at the California king-size bed, minimalistic design, and solid oak furniture around the room. Helen sat on the bed, curling into a ball by the pillows, watching as Jabari dug into his nightstand to retrieve his weed stash. Helen cut her eyes at the idea of this man, regardless of color, doing drugs with her daughter. Excuse me, you two will do no such thing. This is my house, Jabari noted, plucking a few nugs into the grinder and passing it to Helen. Grind this up. Helen pouted, listening before she ended up on the streets for the night, trying to find a way home without a cell phone. Helen sighed, presenting the grinder when her hands began hurting. Jabari broke down 2 mango Swisher Sweet cigarillos, licking their edges after sprinkling the herb in each shell. Helen watched with intrigue, closing her eyes as the odor of the marijuana met the aroma from the duck reheating the oven, enjoying how he used his tongue. Are one of those for me? Helen asked as a joke. You want one? I might need it after tonight, Helen sighs, remembering the early days of dating Scott before his father got laid off and joined the movement. Jabari considered rolling this one for Helen, but decided against it, sparking up one he had just moved, taking a few hits before extending it to Helen. Helen stared at Jabari, biting her lip coyly and looking away. Now you want to be shy, laying in my bed as if you belong there. Jabari noted at how Helen curled up like she owned the bed. Helen groaned, accepting the blunt and taking a smooth hit,
Remembering her high school days, she smoked after school with her boyfriend, sat in his bed listening to music on the radio, and talked about their dreams and how she would become a famous singer. She would be an actress and tour the world. Then her father and mother introduced her to Scott. Helen took another pill, looking longingly at Jabari, wanting to be held but terrified of asking. "You good?" Jabari rubs her back, sending chills up Helen's spine. "Isn't Piper waiting?" Helen grew cold, turning her back on him. "I think she fell asleep, honestly. It's been a long night." "I didn't expect all this when I called Doug." "Piper says you want him to kill me." "Is that all she said?" "And you have a giant black dildo claiming to hate black people." Jabari laughs, quieting down as Helen's gaze intensifies. "Why'd you tell him to kill me?" "I told you, I watched you and my daughter. Was I supposed to be happy?" "Why not confront us outright?" "I was afraid I wouldn't be able to resist you." Helen crosses her heart, holding her neck. "I couldn't have stopped myself if you offered me the same." "Your daughter came on to me. I did not force myself on her at all." "I know, I saw you and Sophia. I found the entire scene so exhilarating." "Specifically black men. Can I make it up to you?" Helen asks, hopefully, pulling from his blunt, then exhaling in a fit of coughing. "Why don't you rest and relax, okay?" Jabari rubs her neck, scratching her scalp. Helen smiled, relaxing to his grip as he pets her like a cat. "That feels heavenly. You sure you don't want anything from me?" "Nothing I can't get from Piper." Jabari shrugged. "I'm not here to satisfy a fetish, but I will head back to your daughter." Helen nodded. "Okay." "If you hear a scream, I'm not hurting her," Jabari warns, leaving the room. "Wait," Helen calls out, fearing being alone for the night. Jabari tried to conceal his groan, knowing Piper would be wondering what was taking so long in the food in the oven. Jabari returned surprised, and Helen met her at the door. "I'm so sorry for everything. I have met a black person before today, and I have been told the horrible, horrible things about you people. I didn't have any choice but to believe what I heard. It's all I heard. No one around me had any experience with black people, and it feels like the ones who do move away, far away from us." Helen rubs Jabari's arm, biting her lip as she holds his hand. "I'm sorry." "Apologize to your daughter. Racism is white people's problem, and I do my best not to make it my problem." Jabari rubs his chin. "Get some rest. The controller's on the nightstand." Jabari tilted his head as he saw Helen turn around. Biting his thumb is the big-bottomed woman with wide hips and thick thighs from the front. Helen had such a slender waist and toned arms he could never have imagined. Helen looked over her shoulder to find him watching her, dropping the remote and bending over, giving him a better look. Barry glanced over his shoulder, fearful Piper would sneak up on them. I have to get to your daughter." "Don't forget to check up on me. I don't want to be alone," Helen said seductively. It was hard for Helen to ignore the hard-on in Jabari's pants. The two contemplated the situation as Helen made another request. "Do you have a shower I can use?" Helen sits back in the bed, turning on the TV. "Private bathrooms through that door, and there's one down the hall to the kitchen for guests. I don't mind if you use mine, but I haven't cleaned it. No one uses the kitchen bathroom." Jabari explained, glad he could switch focus, trying to smooth out his pants discreetly. "Can you show me how to turn on the water, too?" Helen sucked at her pointer finger. "Come on now, you know how to work a shower." Jabari strained. Helen laughed, pointing at his pants. "You're going to run off the Piper now? I thought that was because of me." "Is this the real life, or is it just fantasy?" Jabari asked, closing the door behind him. "I need to wash first. I'm gross." Helen whines. "You didn't say no." Jabari smiled with relief, cupping Helen's butt. feeling he might have wanted the mother more than the daughter. Your body is so perfect. Helen grinned in her ear, never hearing such a thing before in her life, giddy with excitement. Chapter 16. Helen's nostrils filled with his scent only a few inches from her face. Helen figured she could help him before taking a shower, obediently getting on her knees as she's had to do for her husband while he ranted and raved about needing sexual attention. Yet Helen felt so different, like in her prayer closet alone, unable to hide from Jabari's gaze, gently kissing Jabari's penis and licking her lips to savor the taste as she reached his balls. She stroked him with both hands as she worked the head of his penis. Jabari, where are you?" Piper asked. Helen got up immediately, rushing to his bathroom, leaving him alone, and Piper came inside to find him adjusting his pants. Piper smiled. "You were thinking about me?" I guess you could say that." Jabari went with the flow, gesturing for Piper to climb up on the bed. "Where's my mom?" Piper asked, nervous as Jabari peeled her pants down, taking little time to feel her up, sending her down at her elbows as she let him reach deep against her womb. "You're hard as a rock right now. Why are you so bricked up?" "Why are you asking about your mama?" "Because this place isn't that big, and I didn't see her, and your dick is rock hard. Were you banging my mom?" Piper tried interrogating, but as her butt clapped against Jabari's hip, she quelled her inquiry into a moaning fit. "She's using my bathroom, but I didn't put my dick in her." Jabari held Piper's waist with both his hands. "Do you have an extra towel?" Helen dared to ask, confronting them in the act. Poking her head back inside the bedroom once again rested with the image of her daughter making love to this black man. Helen's hands massaged Jabari's shoulders, whispering in his ears. Jabari lost control inside of Piper. Piper's eyes rolled in the back of her head, not seeing her mother until she was ready to scream. "Mom?" Piper cried out, wanting to disappear. "I need a towel." Helen repeats, stark naked and soaking wet, realizing she had no way to dry off. "Hallway closet, or the second bathroom I told you about," Jabari noted, losing his pacing with Piper. Piper cursed under her breath, reaching her orgasm as the exposure heightened all her senses. "You watching me have sex again?" Piper covers herself up. "I have no interest in you, Piper. I want him," Helen specified, going off back to the bathroom. "Are you looking at her ass?" Piper snaps as Jabari's head trails off with her mom. "You realize she almost had you killed, right? You told me your pussy was worth it, right?" Jabari reminded Piper of what started all this drama. "Yeah, but your mama has some making up to do for me." Jabari squeezes Piper's butt, flipping her over. "You're gonna have sex with my racist mom?" "I decided to keep you two. You're free to leave whenever you want, considering you seem ready for more. I'm gonna sell this condo and we'll move back to your house or out west," Jabari explained. Piper bit her lip. "My daddy warned me about this happening. Black man coming in to make love to you and your mama is better with them lynching and shooting niggas. But I want to fuck two big booty white girls, and I'm wrong." Jabari joked, but had sincerity in what he said. Piper rolls her eyes. "I don't even like my mom. Now you like her? How?" "She'd been flirting with me since I tried to comfort her in the kitchen. Then she wanted to curl up in my bed, and I don't know. She looked like she belonged in my bed." Jabari shrugged. "You want her and not me. Like I said, and I'll say it one last time, you two are free to go, but I plan to keep both of you." Jabari lay on his bed, stretching out long and pointing to the kitchen. "Baby, can you get your duck out the oven?" "You didn't even come." Piper crosses her arms over her chest. "I'm gonna enjoy you two living with me," Jabari notes, massaging her butt as Piper gets up to listen to his simple request. Helen returned wrapped in a towel, drying her hair with a second towel. Helen uncomfortably maneuvered around her daughter and her boyfriend, sitting on the bed to dry herself off. Jabari had Piper's butt in one hand. Helen sat close enough for him to wrap up her waist as well. A few tugs and Helen sat up, coming over and resting her head on his waist. I would like both of you to stay, but if you wanted to go, I understand. Jabari offered, massaging Helen's back while he massaged Piper's butt. Piper, I need you to go get your duck and do that magic you did earlier with the sauce. Okay, baby. Piper looked at her mom, abnegating her jealousy. Piper was shocked that in 1,000 years her mother would be naked in a black man's bed so casually and relaxed, smoking a blunt with him and rubbing his thighs inches from his penis. Her mother watched impatiently for Piper to leave them alone. I gave you two your privacy and I'll do the same, Helen demanded. Piper left as her mother's towel fell. She had heard her mother giggling and jesting for the first time since her grandfather died. When Piper came back to tell them dinner was ready, she was even taking a few extra moments to make her Peking sauce. Her mother had been on her back with her legs wrapped around Jabari's face. Her mother's eyes closed, back arched in pure ecstasy. Neither noticed Piper. Piper covered her mouth, hiding behind the wall as Jabari mounted her mother. Helen cried out as she was penetrated, praying as her body quickly adjusted to his girth like a fitted glove. Helen peeked an eye open, finding the red hair poking out from behind the wall, yet she couldn't raise her voice to say anything as her body involuntarily moved to meet the young man's thrust. Helen panted as Jabari stretched out her walls. Helen grunts and fights Jabari, pushing him back as the pain starts to cause her discomfort. Piper sighs, revealing herself and kneeling by her mother's head, stroking her hair out of her face. You need to relax and just take it. Stop tensing up like it's a small one. You need to just relax. Helen looks away, unable to listen to Piper and deal with the discomfort. Embarrassment and shame consume her. Helen, just chill and let me do the work. Jabari confirmed what Piper had said. Helen let out a deep breath, letting Jabari lift her legs on his shoulders, taking his time, holding her flesh against his waist. Helen's tongue fell from her mouth, nodding as she listened to them both, feeling the world around her melt away as she was left with her thoughts. Jabari's pace intensified with each thrust until the pain turned to pleasure. You see? It's good, Piper soothed. Helen felt something she tried to hide so desperately before her daughter coming alive. Flipping onto her stomach into a more comfortable position, Piper covered her mouth as her mother offered herself to Jabari from her stomach, lifting her round, voluptuous butt into the air for him. Jabari drooled, looking at Helen's backside, tripping over himself to get back inside her, feeling like he was in heaven as he penetrated Helen from the new angle with her butt pressed against him. Helen couldn't hide her excitement, feeling truly beautiful in her skin for the first time in her life. Piper laughed at the expression on their faces as the two hungrily moved their hips. My mom, of all people, likes black cock. Piper slaps her forehead, taking one of the blunts from the nightstand and giving them privacy. Instead of the Zen garden, Piper explored the rest of the apartment, sitting in the living room, which she had a plasma TV, a game system, and a fire stick. Piper laid out on the sectional couch with a blanket, watching Orange is the New Black, with a plate of Peking duck and vegetable fried rice, with a pint of Haagen-Dazs ice cream from the gas station. Piper was awoken by her mother. Jabari slept in the bedroom, worn out from the sex with both women, enjoying his day despite all the drama. I'm sorry for not talking to you first. Helen rubbed Piper's head. Have you heard from Dad yet? I haven't heard from Dad or Doug. I feel bad moving on so quickly if something bad happened to them. Helen frowned, sitting next to Piper. I feel bad if something happened to Dad. I couldn't care less about Doug. Piper rechecked her phone. Try calling the hospitals. Jabari yawned from the kitchen, desperately needing some pineapple juice. Helen poked out her lip, nodding, looking at Piper with confirmation of a good idea. Piper followed suit, calling around Rochester for where her father would be located. Neither woman nor Jabari knows the actual carnage that went down that night. Scott was found on life support and shot twice in the back. The doctors had to induce a coma. Scott had insurance, so they took him in, but had no way to contact his next of kin. Helen didn't have her cell phone. Douglas had died from blood loss after fighting for his life in Highland Hospital. "Dad's in Highland," Piper cheers. Helen smiled slightly, disappointed as she cheated on her husband. She initially thought he had died and could start a new life. Helen looked back to find Jabari had already returned to the bedroom to sleep. Piper continued watching her show as Helen joined her new lover on the bed. "I have to leave to join my husband's side," Helen informed Jabari, massaging his neck and back. "He made it. Good." Jabari was more excited than she could have imagined. "You're not mad?" "I'll be real. Your husband didn't cause all this. You and her fiancé did." Jabari shrugged, sitting up. "If he died, I don't get paid either, so it's good to hear he made it." Helen curled up in the bed. "I thought we might start a new life here, repopulate the earth." "The earth hasn't ended." Helen Hirsch is making love to her daughter's black boyfriend. "Maybe the world ended and I'm living in a dream." Helen joked, using her maiden name. "Want me to drive you to the hospital or call you a ride?" Jabari asked. "Well, we only made love once. He's in a coma. We can try this out a couple more times before I go. Then maybe I'll see you when you have to come back to cut the grass." Helen reached between his legs. Jabari pretended to have fallen asleep. His dick was sore and exhausted from both insatiable women, yet felt powerless as Helen went between his legs, suckling and deep-throating his dick as she practiced in her prayer room. Jabari lay enjoying her massage, relaxing as Helen climbed on top of him, letting him rest as she rode him like her days as an equestrian, pinching him between her thighs, bouncing her weight. Jabari had nothing left inside him, but Helen worked out a lifetime of demons, returning to her favorite form of prayers, happy to have a partner in her holiest ritual since her teenage years. When Jabari finally became flaccid inside of Helen's wall, she could barely feel the difference than with her husband normally, winding her hips while looking profoundly upon her young lover, taking her daughter's boyfriend from her to do with as she pleased. Helen felt victorious laying on top of Jabari, purring as he kneaded her butt, unable to grasp its magnitude, admiring her in adonatologist worship. Helen rode the young man, draining Jabari's life force inside of her womb. Helen collapsed on her rival's chest, kissing his neck and biting his ear, feeling satisfied for the first time in her sex life. Helen giggled, sneaking out of the bedroom while Jabari rested. Helen found Piper eating alone, crying quietly. Helen was in pure nirvana, but her maternal instincts couldn't ignore her daughter's sobbing. "I'm very sorry for sleeping with your boyfriend. I'm so sorry I caused all this." Helen held her hand to her chest, dressed in Jabari's Oxfords with her womanhood exposed for all to see. "I don't care about that. It's Dad." Piper sobbed uncontrollably, holding out her phone. Pictures of the massacre flipped on social media. Pictures of Douglas, Matthew, cops, and Scott as the news reported the damage. Helen covered her face, turning bright red, unable to process what she caused. The man she wanted dead was sleeping like a baby, and the men she brought to kill him were maimed or dead. Helen didn't know how she would possibly live with herself. Piper stayed the evening, but after Helen showered once more and took the Uber ride to the hospital to support her husband, Piper was glad she had her man back. She felt it was too soon to face her father. The young couple watched her TV show on the couch, finding her boredom annulled and enjoying her new environment. Epilogue. Scott spent a month in the hospital before being released. He was paralyzed from the waist down, thankful to be alive. He cut all ties with the clan after nearly dying from his wife's ranting. Helen sat by his side every day. Piper and Jabari visited every so often. But Scott didn't like how Helen would find excuses to leave him alone with Piper whenever Jabari was around. "I'm pregnant," Helen confronted Jabari as she wiped between her legs. Jabari washed his face and hands in the guest room's private bathroom. Helen was pregnant before Piper? He couldn't believe it. "I'm keeping it," Helen confirmed. "What will we tell Piper and your husband?" Jabari felt sick with himself, visiting a wounded man, and sleeping with his wife. Piper knows already. My husband thinks it's his, and we had sex around the same time. Doctors aren't sure if he'll make it. They found cancerous tumors while operating. Scott would have never guessed his wife began having sex with a landscaper who started all this in his home. Scott spent his time in the den alone, smoking and drinking while watching television. Piper and Helen took turns upstairs, finding it more manageable than their alternating weekends visiting Jabari in Buffalo for alone time rather than awkwardly watching one another. Whenever Jabari came to cut the lawn, he could find his ladies by the pool waiting for him. The yard looked incredible. Mother and daughter had never been happier or closer, and Scott found the peace he wanted in retirement. Scott made no complaints finally having the peace he wanted as he recovered. Scott no longer dealt with his wife's neuroticism of the outside world or his daughter's defiance, even less as Piper planned to return to California with Jabari. Helen couldn't ask for a better reason to visit her daughter for weeks at a time. I'm here for you every step of the way. Do I leave Piper now? Jabari wraps his arms around Helen's waist, rubbing her fupa as she blushed, shaking her head. I expected you to run for the hills. After all I caused and did, I don't know if God's punishing me or rewarding you with a baby. Helen frowned, beginning to cry, turning into Jabari's chest. Jabari squeezed Helen tight, lifting up her chin and kissing her on the lips. Helen rubbed the young man's erection, wiping away her tears as she thought of what would make her feel better. Piper never let it go that Jabari got her mother pregnant and consistently used it to get whatever she wanted from him over their years of marriage. Piper and Jabari traveled the world together, shutting up restaurants, hotels, and vineyards in their favorite countries to visit. Their children inherited their businesses, each taking them in their own creative directions in their lifetimes. Scott lived a happy man, spending his weaning years of life raising Jabari and Helen's son. Helen never told him anything. Scott used the strap-on to satisfy his wife, thrilled by her genuine joy and excitement, though he never caught on to how Helen behaved whenever Piper and Jabari came to visit. As Piper kept her father distracted, allowing her mother time alone to bond with her new son-in-law. After Scott's death, Helen moved in with Piper and Jabari. Jabari moved from being an uncle to a full-fledged father, raising his boy with the rest of his and Piper's kids. The mother and daughter had never been closer. Helen began learning from Jabari and following his leadership. Helen browsed his library, studying Malcolm X, Elijah Muhammad, John Henrik Clark. and Huey Newton, revolutionizing her perspective of reality through education. Helen began writing her own revolutionary writing under the name White Lioness, living well into her hundreds, traveling the world giving speeches. Sophia never returned to the Meyers residence and never told her husband about her brief affair with Jabari. They lived happily married well into their old age, never seeing or knowing of the horrors that occurred on the property. Sophia kept the videos of Helen until her death, laughing at them even harder when news hit about the White Lioness. Man went to heaven, being misled to join a gang of angry men at his most vulnerable, being forgiven for simply wanting a place to belong and feel understood. Douglas, however, went to hell. Along with the rest of the neo-Nazi race soldiers, she started a war with the police. Jabari and Helen's son, Roderick George Bennet, became a U.S. Senator, running in November as the first black Republican president against his father's better judgment, and to his mother's delight, hoping to unify those willing to look past the history of an evil. Hoping to unify those willing to look past the history of evil in America, to focus on overcoming through love, understanding, and joy, and to expose those who rather hate and help those suffering to lead the nation for 2 terms. Piper and Jabari's children went off into the arts sciences and touring with their grandmother to work on the family business of spreading awareness and educating people on race relations. Helen and Jabari's youngest son, Elias Scott Bennett, became a world-renowned rapper and singer, not associating much with his family while on tour, and living with his dad and grandmother Piper while home. And they lived happily ever after.